part of the equation is the most important part, because the people are managing and working the physical resources. The people are making stuff happen. You could have a whole bunch of physical resources, but if you don't have good team members, it's hopeless. So our focus is very, very much on the team, the people that are working the physical resources and adding value to the project. So to work this knowledge area, we need to be aware of the team environment, the company that we're in, any politics of the firm. Cultural issues are also huge when it comes to working with people. What makes an organization unique in that regard? Respect, interpersonal skills. These are very important to understand the concept of resource management as it pertains to the humans. Now, when it comes to physical resources, a lot of concentration is on the allocation of resources, using the physical resources, material, equipment, and supplies, having consideration for the use of these resources in the manner that they should be used, because failing to manage and control resources is a source of risk for project completion. For example, failing to secure critical equipment is an example the PMI give. Failure to secure critical equipment for the project or infrastructure on time could result in delays in the manufacturing of a final deliverable. Also, ordering low quality material could damage the quality of the product, and that could cause high recall rates. So when you think about resources, we also need to tie that to quality. Physical resources, very important. When we think about having too much inventory, it could also result in high operations cost. Also, on the reverse, unacceptably low inventory could cause delays in a product, service, or result being carried out at the right time. It could also hamper customer demand if we're talking about a ready-made inventory item that the customer needs. And that could also lead to reduction in profit. So as you think about physical resources, think about quality. What are the trends and emerging practices? Well, JIT, just in time, Kaizen, total productive maintenance, and the theory of constraints, if you've read the book, are kind of emerging practices in the world of resource management. Another big one is emotional intelligence. A project manager should invest time and energy by being aware of him or herself, self-management, self-awareness, and also relationship management. Another big one, which came up, at least in my world, in the view of Agile, was self-organizing teams. Understanding that teams can self-organize, and there might be instances where these teams can organize themselves and they have a role of a servant leader, not necessarily a project manager, but one who may be a servant leader. We talk about Scrum Masters and so on. That is a different model, but it still is discussed in this framework of resource management. We also talk about virtual teams quite a lot these days. It's nothing new. Now, tailoring considerations for resource management, diversity, physical location of the team is important. The industry-specific resources. What resources do we need in the industry? Are any special resources needed? How do we acquire these folks? How do we manage our team? What are the life cycle approaches? For me, I just look at the organization, craft and tailor an approach for your project that meets the organization's needs, that maps back to the culture of the organization. In terms of considering for Agile, I think if you've got great interpersonal skills as a project manager or someone involved in the project, I think the team will benefit from that. But the big thing is to maximize collaboration. You want to use self-organizing teams. It's been shown that these teams are solid. It's been shown that they synergize well. And collaboration is meant to boost productivity. So working in a collaborative fashion in a shared environment, shared space could be a big thing. It could facilitate the accelerated integration of the team. And that concludes our review of our CTTs for resource management. Welcome to Domain 2, Task 1. Execute the project with the urgency required to deliver business value. In this domain, it starts off with the enabler 2.1.1, which is assess opportunities to deliver value incrementally. How do you do this? This is really pointing you towards the world of Agile, where this is done in staggering the work. Assess opportunities to deliver value incrementally is about selecting the project and its management approach via small increments of work to mitigate the impact of risks associated to the projects that attributes higher uncertainties and complexities. So in other words, when you're starting off the project, you need to ask the question, which delivery approach is best? Predictive, iterative, agile, incremental. And based on what you discover, you may choose to go with a predictive approach. Perhaps that's the best way of delivering the value that this project is meant to deliver. But other times, you'll see an opportunity. Do you see the word assess opportunities? Other times, you'll assess the opportunity and see we can deliver in increments. So if you assess the project and you realize we can deliver in increments, then that needs to be planned in. Some projects have considerable uncertainty around project requirements and how to fulfill those requirements using current knowledge and technology. So who is responsible for this? Someone we call the team facilitator or the product owner. The product owner is someone who understands the needs of the business, where these requests are coming from. Why do we need to do this? In other words, why do we need to execute the project with urgency required to deliver business value? By doing a small increment and then testing and reviewing it, the team can explore uncertainty at a low cost in a short time, reduce risk, and maximize business value delivery. When teams deliver small increments, they are better able to understand the true customer requirements faster and more accurately than with a static written specification. Case in point, I'm working with a client and I give them a final product and they're kicking back so many change requests that it became apparent we needed to get a mock-up demo in front of them quicker. Not the full thing, but if we just had that minimum viable product that we could send to them to get enough feedback to guide us on the right trajectory, it would have been a good thing. It would have been time well spent. But because we did not do that, we ended up getting a ton of feedback that pointed to the other direction we're coming from. So when you work with a team in the world of Agile, there's something we call the minimum viable product. You want to get the minimum viable product in front of the customer so that they can give you enough feedback for you to ascertain if you're going in the right direction or not. So when and where is it done? It's done in a predefined time in the project, typically during the initial stage. So in the initial stage, this is where you're assessing how are we going to deliver value? How many increments should this be? What should we deliver and when? You haven't started developing, but you're beginning to ask the question. How is it done? Expert judgment is considered for the size of the project, its duration, complexity, organizational factors, clients, or stakeholder expectations. You're delivering a 50-story building to a client. Now, in the world of Agile, it's different. For software development, we may say we can deliver increment 1, increment 2, increment 3. But how do you do a 50-story structure and deliver it in increments? Think about it. How? Now, there might be some shortcuts to get certain stories done quicker than others. And that's what you need to be thinking of. Even if you're not working on an agile project, you should ask, how do we get business value to our clients? Well, maybe we can release the 50th floor first, and we can get people to begin to work out of there while the other floors are being kitted, while the other floors are being worked on, while the minor work is ongoing. But the way that works, the city, the state, whoever is in charge of that project may not let you do that. So you need to look for creative ways of delivering value from that structure ASAP. I remember in Canary Wharf in the United Kingdom, when we, Citigroup, were moving in from Victoria, London, they let us use certain floors. Certain floors were cordoned off. They were still being worked on, but other floors we could begin to work. So decision-making is based on the situation at hand. How else can we execute the project with the urgency required to deliver business value? Well, we need to examine the business value throughout the project. If you examine the business value throughout the project, you see how value is being disseminated. You see how value is being given from previous iterations. And it needs to be something that you constantly do. So, examine the business value throughout the project is about evaluating the project work. So as you're getting the work done, you're looking and asking questions regarding the project work to verify whether it matches business value as per the roadmap that meets stakeholder expectations. Not only is this a thing of reporting or burn down charts or graphs or charts, but it's something of questions and answers directly to a customer. Remember, this is a new task, so a lot of it is agile leaning or hybrid leaning. Who is responsible for this? Team facilitator, product owner, the cross-functional team. Why should we do this? Well, examining business value throughout the project allows the team to improve the project work, the processes, and the outcome. It's part of that PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. Deliver the value, go back to the drawing board, ask the question, is this going well? Is it not? If not, make an adjustment. It's done all throughout the project. How is it done? There are ways that you can examine the business value even while the project is underway. And one of these is by a daily stand-up meeting. Teams use stand-ups to micro-commit to each other. So every day, if you are asking me, what did you do yesterday? It makes me think, did I do anything? What are you going to do today? It helps me commit to what needs to be done. And the third question asked in a daily stand-up is, are there any impediments that are blocking your way? Tell us, so that someone in the room after the meeting can help you remove those obstacles, those impediments. So we use daily stand-ups to micro-commit, to uncover problems and make sure the work flows smoothly. Another opportunity is during what we call reviews. In the world of Scrum, we call these sprint reviews. So as the team completes the features, usually in the form of user stories, the team will demo what they've done to the client, to the customer. The product owner sees the demonstration and accepts or declines stories. This is another way of examining the business value. The team reports empirical data. Burn down charts are a big one. And if you have your PMBOK guide to hand, we might as well open it up so that I can point you in the direction you need to be reading. For every one of these chapters, my friends, we have a description of how Agile works for that particular knowledge area. You do need to read this in a lot of detail before you exam. So in the PMBOK guide, we're talking about page 178. So in the PMBOK guide on 178, it says considerations for agile or adaptive environments. And then it says adaptive approaches use short cycles to undertake work review the results, and adapt as necessary. That's exactly what we're talking about right here. See that? It says these cycles provide rapid feedback on the approaches and suitability of deliverables. So those are the opportunities to glean if the value being delivered is what is needed. It says, and generally manifests as iterative scheduling and on-demand, pull-based scheduling, as discussed in the section on key trends and emerging practices. So even before this page, there's a page 177 that has iterative scheduling with a backlog talked about. Do you see that? It says, this is a form of rolling wave planning, blah, blah, blah. And then we've also got on-demand scheduling. Now, I am curious to know, how many of you have studied the Agile modules on the learning management system? Because if you've not, you might struggle with some of these concepts. And that is why in the past I did ask, make sure you study those Agile, Scrum related modules. Did I say earned value? I hope not. I meant to say Agile modules and Scrum and Kanban and things like that. We got a question, does value refer to deliverable? Very good. In most instances, it could, because you get your value from using that deliverable increment. It's not the entire deliverable, but it's an increment of the deliverable that gives you satisfaction. So if you can deliver just a little bit of a web page that contains information that the company wants to get out, it's not the whole thing, but it's just one page. It's a landing page. At least people coming to the company's website can get what they need. Employees can get what they need from that one page. It's not the entire deliverable. It's just an increment that delivers value. So that value, that satisfaction that they get from at least not being disoriented, that is value, and things like that. The next place I want you to go to talk about these burn down charts, it seems like everyone has, to some degree, taken a look at those Agile videos, which is good. But let's talk about these burn down charts in control schedule. Page 226 has got an iteration burn down chart. And it says here, this chart tracks the work that remains to be completed in the iteration backlog. It is used to analyze the variance with respect to an ideal burn down. So the ideal burn down, you can see it straight going down. The actual is those square shaped lines. So you can see the square shaped little points going down. That is the actual. And you can see they're a little bit off. So in terms of days, they're going to get done on the 11.5 day on the date line there, but they were meant to have gotten done on day 10. So this iteration burn down chart is really what we're talking about here. And it's one of the important pieces of tracking Agile projects. All right. So the team reports empirical data, burn down charts. You also have burn up charts. We also could use Kanban boards in the world of Agile. What is a Kanban board? Very rapidly, I will show you what this is so that we can move on, but I know some of you already know what this is. A Kanban board is broken down into 3 sections: to do, doing, and done. Now we could go a step further and we could have a column with so many other pieces that need to be flown into this pipeline. So simple analogy, as a project manager, you get to work, you got a bunch of work to do. You decide what you're going to do when you get to work. Now, bear in mind, you've got a much bigger backlog on the left-hand side with the arrow pointing down, but you're going to select some things to do for the day. As your project or your day begins to unfold, you begin to move some of these into the doing column for you to execute. You do not want to do too many things at once. 2, not bad. 3, you're pushing it. You're pushing the whip, not the physical whip, but the WIP, the work in progress limit. So every team decides on their WIP, work in progress. What is the maximum number of things we're going to have spinning in the air? 1, 2, 3. That's enough. No more than 3. So every team has their WIP. If you're doing this as an individual, you've got your WIP. Now you might say, well, I'm going to have 3 because I'm waiting on a deliverable. Excuse me, from someone else. But ultimately, as you begin to get things done, you move them into the done column. And then more things are introduced into the pipeline. And that's how the Kanban board works at a high level. They have a lot of illustrations here in the Agile Practice Guide. But if you have not opened the Agile Practice Guide, this is actually talked about here as well. So let me tell you where you can get an image of this on page 105 of the Agile Practice Guide. It is not, I wouldn't say absolutely common practice, but a lot of teams do use a Kanban board in Scrum. And they actually go as far as making it a Scrum ban, if you will. Medley. This is talked about on page 106 of this document. Oh, not 106. Let's see. This is talked about on 108. And I'll just read. It says, Scrum Ban is an agile approach, originally designed as a way to transition from Scrum to Kanban. And that is Scrum Ban to answer that question. But to give you an illustration of the Kanban board, you can see on page 105, they have rather elaborate example there. And you can see the Kanban board has been broken down into analysis, to-do, analysis, development, test, and deploy. So as you get ready for your exam, my friends, you also need to read this. This is going to help you better understand what the PMI is looking for from you. So in the world of Agile, when you're using Scrum, you can also use a Kanban board, and you can make it a medley of sorts, Scrum Ban. Now, as we get towards the end of this, it is important that we identify some additional components from the world of Agile. It's really going to help you solidify your knowledge regarding this entire domain, because we will begin to encounter this more and more. So I would like to shift gears here and talk a little bit about how Agile works. So I'm going to show you a few slides that talk about the PMI's perspective towards Agile as documented in the Agile Practice Guide. So I call this Jump to Agile. You have to immerse yourself into the values of Agile. In Agile, we believe in individuals and interactions, people working together over processes and tools. We believe in working software over comprehensive documentation, reams and reams of paper. What's the point if we don't have working software? Now, we're not saying that comprehensive documentation is bad, but we value what is on the left more than what is on the right. We value humans. customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We want to look at this as we are working together, not we're working against each other or competing. We're also looking at responding rapidly to change. We would rather throw out the plan and respond to change that's going to deliver value quick. There are 12 agile principles. We got to satisfy the customer, welcome changing requirements. You need to say, thank you for these changed requirements because they're going to add value to you more than just following a plan. Many projects midway, it's too late. You realize this software is now obsolete. This solution is now obsolete. Too late. We're committed to it. We have to see it through to the end. But in the world of Agile, we say no. We welcome changing requirements. We deliver working software frequently. Why do we want to do that? One, to deliver business value, and two, to be able to adapt to the marketplace if we need to. Collaborate daily through daily stand-ups, motivated individuals, face-to-face conversations. That's why we co-locate the team a lot in the world of Agile. Regularity in reflecting on continuously improving. Self-organizing teams. We assume people are adults. They can manage their work themselves. We don't need to micromanage. Simplicity is essential. Continuous attention to technical excellence. Promote sustainable development and measure of progress through working product. If you haven't delivered a working product, we cannot say that you have achieved greatness. Agile has got several different flavors, and in the Agile Practice Guide, the PMI make this very clear on page 11. In this image, I do not show everything that the PMI has shown, but you get an idea that Agile is an umbrella of many things, and you can see that Scrum is just one of these things, just one of these things, okay? The Scrum process is what we're going to talk about, and it's very important, as highlighted. Those of you reading the chat here, our friend Yasser says we need to put borders when welcoming change, not to allow gold plating. Absolutely. So when you use the Agile framework, though, the word gold plating and scope creep, they are attacked differently. Why? Because in the middle of an iteration, you cannot just randomly throw in stuff. Change is welcome through a pipeline, but that pipeline has a gatekeeper. The product owner is the gatekeeper. And if the product owner doesn't see value, they're going to have a hard time adding that to the product backlog. When something does make its way into the backlog, the gatekeeper, the product owner, has taken that user story or that collection of user stories from the business and allowed it in. This next image will underscore what happens in Agile. Now, as I said on the previous slide, the world of Agile is very robust. These are some of the flavors: Scrum, Kanban, Crystal, XP, FDD, RUP, DSDM, and in the PMBOK guide, you see even more. Scrumban, AUP, and the list could go on. They have a more elaborate breakdown of other flavors. The PMI recently purchased an Agile-oriented framework from an organization, and there are other organizations that espouse scaling Agile up or down. We won't go into that today. But what I really want to focus on is the Scrum process, because even though it is just one, it is one of the many Agile flavors, but it is the most dominant. 71% plus of companies that use Agile use Scrum. That's right. Think about it. 71%. gravitate towards this. This is the other 30 or 29%. And that's why Scrum is very dominant in the world. And that's why in this training, we are going to be focusing on Scrum. So let's focus on the Scrum process. So the Scrum process starts off with this entity that we will call the product owner. This is the product owner. The product owner is someone who understands the business well. Like I said, the person serves in some way as a gatekeeper of sorts. And I want you to follow me to the Agile Practice Guide, because the product owner is defined on page 153. So let's go to page 153 and read that. And it says here, product owner, a person responsible for maximizing the value of the product. You see the word value again, and who is ultimately responsible and accountable for the end product that is built. See that? So the product owner, it starts off with the product owner, someone who knows the business. The product owner has an idea of what he or she would want to see in the pipeline. These are user stories. These user stories come from the business. And this collection of user stories, we have a name for this. The name that we call this collection right here of pretty much everything that needs to be done or that they would like to be done is a product backlog. The product backlog is a collection of user stories. What is a user story? A user story is a user-oriented description of what the customer or what the end user wants. It is written in this format. It is written like this. As a, whatever you are, I would like, whatever you would like, so that whatever the need you want will be accomplished. You see that? As a, I would like, so that. So we would not call the customer the product owner. No, the customer is someone in the business, in the trenches of the business. The product owner is more removed from the business, but understands the business and can play multiple roles. But we would not see them as the customer or the end user, even if they're benefiting from it. We would like to see them as that, the product owner. Okay, so the product owner is an entity that is dedicated to this. Now, all of these user stories, they come from the business. So even though the product owner may have a lot of experience in the business, we are not going to refer to them as the customer. They are an entity that is very unique in the world of Agile. Now, in the business, you could have the customers. The product owner, in many instances, comes from the business. Kanban may be a close second, but I'm not absolutely sure regarding Kanban. But the bottom line is, in the world of Agile, when it's being taught, Scrum is usually the first reference point because it is very visual, as you can see. I was working with a former student of mine who works for the government, and this student got stuck and was not able to move forward on the project. What helped the student move forward was user stories to really get down to the bottom of what the customer wanted. As a director, I would like a dashboard so that I can check up on my team and see how they're performing. As a patient, I would like a gadget so that I can check up on my doctor's availability and medication availability even before ringing them up, or things such as that. So your user story is very specific. It's not just saying, I want something. It's telling you what my role is, what I want, and why. What does that do? It helps the developer narrow down what to give you and how. It could also show additional opportunities that would be lost in the world of traditional requirements, where we just say, I want this. So the role, what you want, why you want it is important. So this product backlog, it goes on. And the product backlog, like we said, we welcome change. So when people say, I would like, we're not going to shut them up or shut them down. We let them tell us what they want. And if the product owner decides to put it in the backlog, then so be it. This next thing that we have here is called a sprint backlog. So this is your product backlog. We're going to cordon it off so that you know where it is. That's your product backlog. Next, we have a subsection of it. The subsection of your product backlog is a sprint backlog, and we're going to cordon it off so that we know what we are going to work on in the sprint. Now, in the sprint, you have developers who are working on the things that you have decided to work on. So here we've said we're going to take 4 user stories and we're going to do them in the sprint. And we call this the sprint backlog. We have sprint planning where this takes place. There are many ceremonies in the world of Agile. And one of the things that we do is we plan the sprint. The team plans the sprint with the product owner. Now, the sprint is anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks typically, but some teams are more aggressive. So the typical sprint is 4 to 6 weeks. Some teams are aggressive and do 2 weeks. Some teams do even longer. Really depends. That's why it's a free world when it comes to Agile. The rules of engagement are not as strict as the rules in the waterfall or predictive world. So the sprint, like I said, is 4 to 6 weeks, but you could have variation. Some people might say, I want to do it in 1 week. I want to do it in 3. It's up to them. And that's why in the cycle, you've got a variation. It could be anything. So if a team decides to do it in 1 week, they could, but they need to make sure that all the work in the sprint backlog is done. And if it's not done, that work that is not done will be reviewed at the end. So like I said, the world of Agile is very free. There are very many perspectives of how many weeks it should be. In the IT industry, it could be 2 weeks. That's pretty much the spot I've heard. Some companies could differ. So there's no hard and fast rule. And that's why I've given you various perspectives. Some teams could say, I want to do it in 1. And there's nothing wrong in that. Okay? All right. So the team, this group of people interacting in the sprint, doing it over and over and over and doing things over and over again across 4 weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks, however long. But the team decides, and usually once you've locked it down, you've locked it down. All the sprints are the same size in iteration-based Agile. But we could also have a flow-based approach. And in a flow-based approach, we could have variation in your sprint time box. So keep that in mind. But typically, we want to time box it to be the same. Every sprint is going to be 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 1 week, however long. And the idea is that in multiple sprints, we will cover all the work in the backlog. So part of the ceremonies of Scrum is a daily Scrum, also known as a daily stand-up meeting. And you can see here these individuals having a conversation there. those people having the conversation are really answering those three questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? What are the impediments I can help you remove? And we have an individual known as a Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is that person who removes impediments for the team, who helps the team in a servant leader capacity. Every 24 hours, this daily stand-up that does not exceed 15 minutes most times is held. In the meeting, we have those who are committed to the work, the developers. We call them the pigs. We call them the pigs because there's a story about the chicken and the pig that went to a diner for breakfast. And up there it said, eggs and bacon for breakfast. And the pig said, I'm not going in there. For you, it's just a donation. For me, it's total sacrifice. No. So in the world of Scrum, the pigs, total sacrifice, trying to get the work done. The chickens are those outside, like in the business. The customer, those are the chickens. And in the daily Scrum, we do not let the chickens talk. They listen. After the meeting, they can speak. We also try to shield the team from those chickens that drag them out and waste their time. So the Scrum Master puts a barricade, if you will, around the team to prevent the team from being pulled out into unnecessary things. At the end of the sprint, 4 to 6 weeks, 1 to 6 weeks, however you want to spin it, we will get a shippable product increment. And that shippable product increment does not necessarily mean we are going to release it. But as we try to get this shippable product increment, we should also be asking the questions at the end. When we demo it in a sprint review, we should be asking the question, does this meet the needs? What can we do better? What did we mess up in this sprint that we can do next? And that's why we have a second meeting called a retrospective. And in the retrospective, we focus more on what we did wrong and what we can do right. In the sprint review, we're really just demoing the product. So from the demo, if the customer or the product owner or someone says, this isn't good, then it means we need to go back to the drawing board and make it good. This is not a question of it's in the plan, we did what's in the plan. So I hope you're beginning to realize how this world works very differently, okay? So is Scrum an iterative development or incremental development or both? So to get an answer to this very good question, I want to invite you to open page 18 in this book. Open up page 18, and what does it say? Table 3-1. Table 3-1, you can see the requirements, the activities, and the delivery, and the goal. What makes Agile different from other methods is it is both an incremental and iterative approach in many instances. So we're repeating it until it's correct, iterative, but at the same time, we are giving you frequent, smaller deliveries. So let's read on page 19. It says, leverage both aspects of iterative and incremental in Agile life cycles. Agile life cycles leverage both the aspects of iterative and incremental characteristics. When teams use Agile approaches, they iterate over the product to create finished deliverables. The team gains early feedback and provides customer visibility, confidence, and control of the product. Because the team can release earlier, the project may provide an earlier return on investment because the team delivers the highest value work first. And that's part of what we're talking about. So very good question about the difference between iterative and incremental. Let's go to the whiteboard to take a look at this in a little bit more detail. Taking a look at the PMBOK sidekick known as the Agile Practice Guide on page 19, you have this image, and it shows you incremental, and then to the right of that, you can see agile. And then directly underneath agile, you see iterative. And then to the left of that, you see predictive. And then on the x-axis, it says degree of change. So if that is a 0 point, and we're talking about degree of change there. Degree of change. In other words, they're showing you that the degree of change is much more in the world of agile and iterative. And then that way you can see the frequency of delivery. Frequency of delivery. So what are they saying here? Predictive, you have low frequency of delivery. Incremental, high frequency of delivery. Agile, high frequency of delivery and high degree of change. Iterative, low frequency of delivery. It's a one-time delivery, but the degree of change is high because you're trying to do things over and over again until it is perfect. So let's take a look at the table on page 18 one more time. So if you take a look at this table, you can see the difference between predictive, iterative, incremental, and agile. In the world of predictive, the requirements are fixed, but all the other methods have a dynamic air to the requirements. The requirements are allowed to move on you. The delivery is what distinguishes these from each other. Again, predictive is single delivery, iterative is single delivery, but incremental and agile are frequent, smaller deliveries. What is the goal of each of these? Predictive, we all know it's cost. Management gets crazy when the cost goes higher, right? But in the world of agile, customer value via frequent, smaller deliveries and feedback. That's what we're looking for. Incremental is all about speed, and iterative is doing it until it's correct. Correctness of the solution. So that is pretty much the difference between your agile, your iterative, your incremental, your predictive, all right? So I hope that answers the very good question that you asked. Because indeed, when you take the exam, the PMI, they would like to know that you know the differences between those. So page 18, I would advise you to look at that page again and again. Watch this video again and go over some of these things that we've spoken about, all right? So another discussion we need to have is going into the world of MVP. It is a term that is very important, and you will see that this term comes up over and over again. So let's tackle it head on. MVP stands for the minimum viable product. And we all know that completeness is subjective. We could say, no, it's not complete. Someone else could say it is complete. It's a subjective thing. So the team may need feedback on a prototype. Remember my example in the beginning of my customer who at the end of the day said, no, no, no. Well, I wish we had used the concept of delivering a minimum viable product. If we had, we would have gotten feedback. It says a customer's feedback helps the team learn what they need to provide for subsequent delivery of the final finished feature. So you know what the final thing should look like. Agile teams as a key differentiator deliver business value often. as the product adds a broader set of features and a broader range of consumers, we say it is delivered incrementally. The concept of MVP is a concept from lean startup that stresses the impact of learning in new product development. We as developers, we need to learn. And this validated learning comes in the form of whether your customers will actually purchase your product. So Eric Rice defined an MVP as that version of a new product that allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning. Minimum product, that new product that allows a team collect the maximum amount of validated learning that about customers with the least effort. So we're trying to put in the minimum effort to get the maximum amount of learning. A key premise behind this idea of MVP is that you produce an actual product, which may be no more than a landing page or service with an appearance of automation, but which is fully manual behind the scenes that you can offer to customers and observe their actual behavior. So if you've ever been in the world of web design, you know you can provide a static page with links that give the impression that it's all automated behind, but it's not. It's manual. It's all connected with links, but it gives you the opportunity to get that early feedback, that learning that is needed for the final thing. Seeing what people actually do with respect to a product is more reliable than asking people what they would do. So to give you a clearer idea of this, let's examine this image from Henrik Nyberg. And in this, you can see the wrong approach to MVP. Think about it. In the first image up top, you have a customer being given one tire. That is not the minimum viable product when we're working with a vehicle to get you from point A to point B. So the customer is mad. What about 2 tires? The customer is still mad. What about this? Customer is still mad until you give them this. So this is not the way we want to go. This is what we want to do to provide that functionality that can still get you to point B. It's not a car yet, but it's that minimum viable products where we can begin to learn lessons. We can begin to understand what exactly the customer really wants. So we want to give them something that at least is a sensible form of getting the job done, going from point A to point B. It's not the final thing, but through iterative development, we build on what we've given them. So we've given them a skateboard or a cart or something that can get them there, and then we just begin to build on it. So it is still a functional thing, unlike this, that is not functional. No. We want to give them something that at least will give us an idea if we're headed in the right direction. And if we're not headed in the right direction, we want to begin to change early, unlike predictive. You see, the problem with predictive is we learn too late. Someone refers to it as a big bang. So we don't want a big bang at the end. So as the product adds a broader set of features, like you saw in that image, and a broader range of consumers, we say it is delivered incrementally. So we want to deliver value. We don't just want to deliver 2 tires. That's not value. The primary benefit of an MVP is you can gain an understanding about your customer's interest in your product without fully developing the product. The sooner you can find out whether your product will appeal to customers, the less effort and expense you spend on a product that will not succeed in the market. Remember my example of my customer? You don't want that to happen. Teams may confuse MVP with a term known as MMF, minimum marketable product, or minimum marketable feature. This is not the same. Okay, so we're not talking about delivering the smallest piece to the customer for the smallest cost. No, we're talking about delivering something to the customer, the minimum value we can deliver to get the maximum knowledge back. So teams deliver what they consider an MVP, and then they don't do any further changes to the product. That is a bad practice of MVP. No, we want to continue to improve. And that is why he has this comment about the time box. It really applies a lot to predictive, but in this world of agile, we want to welcome it. We want to say, yeah, bring it on. Bring on the comments, bring on, the changes, because we know that it's going to lead us to collaborating, right, over negotiation. We want to collaborate over butting heads. We don't want to butt heads. We want to accept those changes that give us value. So a team effectively uses MVP as a core piece of a strategy or experimentation. They hypothesize that the customers have a need and that the product the team is working on satisfies the need. The team then delivers something to those customers in order to find out if in fact the customers will use the product to satisfy those needs. And if they do, then you're in the right direction. So based on that information gained from the experiment, the team continues, note the word changes again, or they might even cancel work on the product. So these are ways you need to be thinking in the world of Agile. Change is not bad. If it is going to satisfy the customer, it's not bad. The concern in the world of Agile, when we approach it, is not primarily cost. You see, in our world of predictive, sometimes we focus so heavily on cost that we miss value. Cost and value are different things, right? So in the world of predictive, we try to streamline those change requests, and that's okay. That is totally fine, because the way predictive works is different from the way Agile works, and none of them is evil or bad. Some people look at Agile as being evil. This is a free ticket for scope creep. No, the mindset is very different. And those of you who are in the training on Saturdays in Agile, you've already been drinking the Kool-Aid. We've begun to give you those subliminal messages that change is good. And I'm hoping that it is actually working. I hope you're beginning to see, okay, change isn't a bad thing. Change is not evil. So the second value here, Mohanad, is working software. You want software that works well. You want coding that is done well, something that actually works, rather than focusing on documents and documents and documents and documents. So in the world of predictive, we are so obsessed with documents. Do I need to give you a reminder about how obsessed we are with documents? And when I say obsessed, even in minimum quantities, the documentation that we work with in the world of predictive is pretty overwhelming. It is. It is a lot of documentation. It is. Let me illustrate what is being said as briefly as possible so that we can move to the meat. Here is an example from a predictive outfit, a predictive establishment, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, I know they use various flavors, but the sheer amount of artifacts and documentation here is absolutely overwhelming to some people. Take a look at that. Tons of documentation. But there are some projects you need this degree, okay? Some projects you have to be predictive. You need your schedules. You need your plans because it is a fully plan-driven project. You have to. You have to. Now, let's compare and contrast that to what you have in the world of Scrum. Let us go to the web page that was put together by Jeff and Ken, the creators of Scrum. Let's go there. Take a look at this page. And let's read the Scrum Guide. Here's a Scrum Guide. This is the Scrum Guide. Let's go to Scrum Artifacts. Can you see the Scrum artifacts talked about here? You've got a product backlog, a sprint backlog, and you've got the increment, and those are your artifacts. Compare that to this. So in the world of Agile and Scrum, what we are espousing is not to put a bad light on predictive. It's just that we value getting our working software over tons of documentation. Okay, so we want to focus less on documents, whether they be technical documents, whether they be project management related documents. That shouldn't be our focus. It's a mindset. You see, if you are thinking in terms of what is the minimum amount of documentation that I use to get my customer value, if you are thinking in that fashion, then you will overcome that mindset problem that a lot of people have in predictive. Let's be honest, in predictive, some companies, they just do documentation because they can do documentation. And a lot of people in companies, they're moving away from that because there's no value in it. And that's why we value working software over comprehensive documentation. By the way, this is on page 8, and this is the Agile Manifesto and Mindset. So thought leaders in software industry formalized the Agile movement in 2001 with the publication of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. As you can see in figure 2-1, it says, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation. We're not saying no documentation. We're just saying that we don't get obsessed with documentation, be it technical documentation, project documentation, whatever. At the end, it says, that is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. Okay, so I hope that answers your question to some degree. And we can talk about this some more in Agile class. So my friends, there you have it. The world of Agile and the way we need to be thinking. Now that you are armed with all of this new understanding, let us go back to the task at hand and finish it off. The last thing we talked about was the burn down chart, and I showed you an example. So as you're going through an Agile project, the burn down chart is showing you what is being accomplished, and you're making sure that you are actually following what you planned. And if not, that's okay. You can make tweaks and adjustments in future sprints. Last but not least, this will make absolute sense and it will not take long at all. The enabler, just so you have your eye on the right place, top right, the enabler is to support the team to subdivide project tasks as necessary to find the minimum viable product. What is the minimum amount to deliver to get the maximum knowledge back? So you're meant to support the team to do that. Subdividing project deliverables and project work into smaller, more manageable components. Basically, we have what we call epics. Now, if you remember, I showed you what a product backlog looked like with all the user stories in it. Well, sometimes you have giant user stories that we call epics. They're so big, we got to break them down into smaller stories. So all of this stuff has to be done. We have to break the work down into user stories and list that in the product backlog. Who is responsible for that? The product owner. And that's why the Scrum Alliance have training that is specific to the product owner. It's called product owner training. Some of you might be product owners. Any product owners in the building? So the product owner, team facilitator, responsible for this. Why do we need or do this? The key benefit is that it provides a framework of what has to be delivered. So we want to know what is going to be delivered. We're going to break it up into tiny pieces. That's sprint 1, that's sprint 2, that's sprint 3, and so on. When and where is it done? Throughout the project as required. How is it done? Well, I showed you. Product owners might produce a product roadmap to show the anticipated sequence of deliverables over time. Now, for those of you that have not taken a look, in the PMBOK guide, I want to call your attention to a particular page where PMI subliminally gives you an agile infusion. In other words, they kind of slide it in so that you don't really notice it, except you're studying for the exam. This is on page 216. So let's go to page 216. And in the book, I'm talking about this image, that one right there. You see that? That image. So in that image, you can see the product vision drives the product roadmap. The product roadmap drives release plans, so on and so forth. Please take a look at that one. I think it's going to be helpful as you study for the exam. This is one of the visualizations of the Agile world that is not in any previous PMBOK guide. It just shows you the direction that the PMI is tending towards being not just a fully plan-driven espousing organization, but really tending towards being a hybridized type of organization. And we see that in what they're doing today. And hybridization is not a bad thing. So let's take a look at this together. I will show you an animated version of it. So if you recall what I showed you in the world of Scrum, this is very, very similar. So the product vision drives the product roadmap. And this is really a collection of releases. We need to have an idea of the product. Where is it going? Where are we headed towards? The product roadmap drives release plans. Now, these release plans are really a collection of sprints. They are also known as iterations, but they're really the sprints that we looked at. So can you imagine those sprints I showed you that were anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks? Some organizations may use 2 or 4, but imagine us having many of these sprints for a release. So we come up with the first release, a number of sprints. Second release, a number of sprints. And in this image, we don't even show you release 2 and 3. We just show you an example of what is happening in a release. The release plan establishes these iterations. And as I showed you in the example, these iterations or sprints are then broken down into user stories. So these user stories could also be called features. Our goal is to break down these features into tasks. And those tasks are not necessarily tracked as tasks on every project. In fact, on some projects, we're not tracking tasks the way we do traditionally as in ours. We can size user stories using what we call story points. But that is taking it to the next level. For the sake of this PMP exam update in 2020, this is sufficient for this task. However, I want to crave your indulgence to watch the videos on the Praizion site. And I also want to crave your indulgence to look up story points in your Agile practice guide so that you can understand other ways that we size stories and work. Okay, so story points and story cards. I would like you to go read those up. Those are very simple. So the summary is this: we can size a user story in points versus hours. And we could say this is the effort required, not even the work in terms of hours. We could size it based on the effort. How difficult would it be? And we can make it relative. So we could say, okay, to program a shopping cart, if we make that a 5, then we would make something like a web page a 1 or 3, for example. All right, but there's a lot more to that. And I would like you to go read that up. It is sort of outside the view of this particular task. So going back here, Remember what we're doing? This particular one is to support the team to subdivide project tasks as necessary to find the MVP, the minimum amount to deliver to get back the maximum feedback that we can incorporate back into the product. So, minimum viable product, I showed you an example of the car and the skateboard. We want to target the one on the right. It has to be delightful to some degree, not completely delightful, but to some degree, usable, valuable, and feasible. Not the one on the left that is nothing. It's not feasible, it's not valuable, it's not usable, it's not delightable. We don't want that, right? We want the one on the right, okay? So again, in lean product development, the minimum viable product or MVP is a strategy to avoid building products that customers don't need or want by maximizing our learning of what is valuable to the customer. Agile is typically learned through exposure to a series of agile practices, a recipe of sorts. So as a reminder, MVP, stuff that we talked about before, utterly important as someone taking this exam. And there we have it. The very first task in domain 2. And now you can probably see why I was a bit concerned in the beginning, because we spent roughly an hour talking about one task. But here's the good news. This one task is new in the world of the PMI, so it made sense for us to actually flesh this out. Let me take you back to our crossover map. And if you take a look here, you can see that the PMI have sectioned this out as new because these are truly new to the exam. They do need to be covered in detail, and that's why I did not hold back in covering the breadth of the information. But now we're done with this, we have to make it a little bit more pragmatic. So I'm going to crave your indulgence to answer, you got it, questions. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and we're going to make sure that we actually come away with some good perspective for this area. So let's get started with our questions. Here is your poll. I'm sorry I did not close the poll. I should have. All right, here we go. First question. You are in the process of assessing opportunities to deliver value the best way possible. This value would typically be delivered as part of a what? I'll give you 1 minute. This is a bit of a new world for some of us. Take a look, think about it. A lot of new terms swirling around in your head. Let me ask you this question. When you're done, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's end the poll and let's share the results. And this is really good because it is beginning to immerse you into the world of Agile. So you're beginning to discover things afresh from a different perspective. But I want to leverage your experience in the predictive world. Let's see. What I'm going to do is give you some options for a predictive question because I want you to rethink this. You're in the process of assessing opportunities to deliver value the best way possible. This value will typically be delivered as part of a So when you see things like this, you need to ask, what exactly does this mean? See. Now, I am going to relaunch the poll because I want you to self-correct and to identify what is on the left, what is on the right in the world of predictive. What would I do in the world of predictive? You see where I'm going with this? So, in the world of predictive, your deliverable, right, which gives value to the customer, would be delivered as part of a what in the world of predictive? Think about it, because what is on the left, I've tried as much as possible to mirror to the right. You see what I'm saying? So, would you deliver value as part of a what? That's pretty much what this is asking. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's end the poll. And remember, no one knows, it's all anonymous. And looking at the results, which I'll keep confidential, everyone knows who's who. In their head, you know who you are and you know what you voted. I don't know. But majority of the folks got this one right again. Although this time we had some slant towards the RTM. So think about it. How would you deliver your value? You would deliver value as part of a phase in the world of predictive. You would deliver value as part of a sprint. At the end of every sprint, the minimum viable product, the minimum shippable product, whatever you want to call it. So it's not a play on words. You could get questions like this on the exam, and there's no trickery, you see. So yeah, you deliver the deliverable as part of a phase. At the end of a phase, you get a deliverable. It's not always at the end of the project. You could deliver value in a predictive project phase by phase. So you get this deliverable done, and then you get another deliverable done, and all together they make up the macro deliverable, even in predictive. So the answer to that, which is a new perspective, and I totally understand it's a new perspective. The answer is sprint. This describes a sprint, okay? We deliver value not as part of a requirement and not as part of a storyboard, even though, you know, storyboard, we could deliver a storyboard and say, oh, this is what we've done, but it's part of a sprint, you know. Okay. That is a little bit of a new one for some of us, but don't worry, we're learning, okay? Let's go to the next one. Value should be planned into the project by which of the following? Value should be planned into the project by which of the following? Who plans value into the project? Glad you're enjoying it. All right, so this is a departure again from what we know in the world of predictive. And that is why I wanted you to come to the Agile class so that you can beef up your understanding. So in this instance, the best answer, let's end the poll, share the results. The best answer to this would have been product owner and team. Product owner and team would have been the best, but product owner is not here. We have some ambiguous term, product manager, which is from a fully plan-driven world in some instances, or a hybrid world, but it is really a team thing. How do we know it's a team thing? Let me take you back to the outline. let's go back to the outline, my friends. This is an outline you're going to have to study a little bit. Going back to the outline, support the team to subdivide project tasks as necessary. It's a team thing. Examine the business value. Assess opportunities to deliver value incrementally. This is what the team does, even though the product owner could be on the horizon. It is really more of a collaborative effort. So that question, in as much as you did not have the product owner, the next best option is actually the team. Okay, so it's a new world and that's okay. We're learning, we're getting used to this. The best answer is a team. Okay. All right. Let me give you one more. And then I'll show you something that we could do to get better in some of these questions. Here we go. At what stage of a project should the business value be assessed? At what stage of a project should the business value be assessed? I'll give you a minute. That's okay. It's a new world. Everything here looks different. We'll get used to it. Don't worry. Now you know what you don't know. That's a good thing. Five, four, three, two, and one. Well done. It seems like we had a perfect score on this one. And I am not only happy, but relieved that we all got it right. Thank goodness. You need to assess business value throughout the project. I'm very glad that we got that. Absolutely important. Okay, let's try one more for good measure. And here is your poll relaunched. On a project, the project manager should what? Remember to put on your hybrid hat. Don't wear an agile only hat or a predictive only hat. On the exam, the PMI are not going to announce, here is an agile question. No, they're not going to do that. So you got to choose the best from the perspective of someone who is in the middle, looking everywhere, okay? Ten seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's end the poll. Share the results. Thank you very much for your participation. Let's take a look. So here are the options. Let's go through them one by one and use the process of elimination as I would expect you to on the exam. Now, even though they don't have a strikeout tool, you need to mentally strike them out. All right. So the first one here, D, I'm going to start from the bottom up. Support the team to subdivide project work as necessary. That's good, you should. But why are you subdividing the project work? Is it to find the smallest work package? It's to find the minimum viable product. as we can read in the outline, to jump really quickly to the outline. Support the team to subdivide project tasks as necessary to find the minimum viable product. So if we go back to the question, this question addresses, or the answer D addresses smallest work package. We're not trying to find that. We're not trying to find the smallest amount of work to do, to make it more manageable. We're trying to find the MVP so that we can get that feedback. So D is not the best option. C, educate and train the team to subdivide project schedules as necessary. We don't subdivide schedules. They're already subdivided from work packages in the world of predictive. So even though this is mixing up predictive and agile terms, we can see that some of them are bogus. And there's no such thing as a minimum viable task. So that's incorrect. No one chose it. B, subdivide project tasks as necessary. Think about it. Do you really subdivide tasks? It's already a task, which means it's been broken out from a work package. So if you were in predictive world, would you subdivide a work package, a task into something else? We could. We could say we're dividing tasks into a subtask. When do we do that? When we don't have a full understanding of resources. But it said in the second phrase, minimum viable cost of production? No. Our goal is to subdivide project tasks so that we can manage the work in the world of predictive properly in a WBS, but it's not to find the minimum viable cost of production, which is not even a term that we use in predictive or agile. So B is bogus. The answer to this is A, exactly as it is in the content outline. And that's why I recommend that you read the content outline, because you will know for a fact where the PMI are going. You will know. So here's the good news. We just upped our efficiency by 50%. How? Because now you guys are more sensitive to Agile and what they could do on this pilot exam. And at the same time, you're aware of what Agile is and the different flavors. And you're also more aware that, wow, you mean they could do this on the exam? Yes. They could mix approaches because we are not strictly in a predictive world anymore. The PMI moved away from that model years ago. So even today, people are getting Agile. If you're taking the current exam, I want you to know that the PMI very well could give you some Agile stuff easily. Okay. So someone said this is fun. I'm happy to hear that. Let's do one more, and I'm going to give you a break after the final question in this bank. Let's go on to question 5. This is a question about being in an adaptive environment. Let me relaunch the poll for you. In an adaptive environment, which of the following is true? I'm going to give you a minute. Read it carefully. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let us end the poll, share the results. Now, in this case, even though we have majority in B, that is not exactly the correct answer. Unfortunately, it's not. And it's not the correct answer because it is incorrect to say the product owner has control of detailed product planning and delivery. No, this needs to be thought of as interactions of the individuals over processes and tools. In the world of Agile, when you hear control, you got to be careful because it's not the traditional management approach where a manager external to the project, such as a sponsor, is in charge. And no, the team is in charge. From beginning to the end, you got to be thinking of this as a team thing. The Scrum Master is also part of the team. In many circles, the product owner is considered to be part of the team to some degree. They're not the development team, but they're part of the team working to get it done. So whenever you get questions that say who is in control, you want to err on the side of the team. Now, the product owner has some very specific tasks that have been assigned to him or her, such as funneling in those stories, those user stories from the business. But the moment it hits that product backlog and we're beginning to plan what to do and how to do it and when, it is no longer in the product owner's sole jurisdiction. You then begin to involve other people, the development team and the Scrum Master. So the word team is very wide. It's a wide net. It's not just the programmers. You also need to see the Scrum Master where there is one as part of that. Now, I know not every flavor of Agile is Scrum, but you need to think of that person who is working with the team, okay? If you want to call it the project manager in that instance, but it's not the project manager in isolation. And that is why the answer that said designated to the project manager, C, that's wrong, okay? So 2 things to learn from this. The product owner is not like a big old manager managing everyone else, no. You cannot do everything alone on a project. You cannot say you are responsible for this. In the world of Agile, especially. In the world of Agile, we think of an all-inclusive, self-organizing, self-managed team, and everyone on the team is responsible. Everyone picks up their own weight. How do you delegate what is in the sprint backlog to a developer? You don't. They pick what they are going to do from the backlog. It's different from the traditional approach where we say, all right, you, Allison, you're going to do this. Brittany, you're going to do this. Yasser, you're going to do this. Mohammed, you sort everything else out in the integration. Fail you. No, not so. In the world of Agile, you have people that pick from the backlogs what to do based on what they know they're capable of. And if there are things that need tag teaming and working together in pairs, that's done as well in the world of Agile. So my friends, the answer to this is A. But you know what I'm really excited about? I'm excited that we are learning. We're learning. Now, I would like you to read in a lot of detail. Let me focus on it. I want you to go read this thing, okay? We need to read this to get good for the exam. I want to read some to you. So let's read on page 92, if you are in this book. I just want to read the beginning. It says, adaptive approaches use short cycles to undertake work, review the results, and adapt as necessary. These cycles provide rapid feedback on the approaches and suitability of deliverables, and generally manifest as iterative scheduling and on demand. Pull-based scheduling, as discussed in the key trends and emerging practices section of the PMBOK guide. So what is happening here? This is referencing this. Do you know what else I want you to do? I want you to read every CTTC section in this book. Concepts, trends, tailoring, and consideration for agile. So let me give you the pages as an example in the area of scope. The concepts, trends, and tailoring start off on page 131, and it goes all the way to page 133. So concepts, trends, tailoring, and you need to know especially the consideration for agile, okay? The consideration for agile. It's optional, as I don't want to confuse everyone. What do you mean by it's optional? Well, you see, the pilot exam, now that you know that you are going to receive a fair dose of agile, it's good. The agile questions, when they appear, it will be very, very clear that this smells of agile. You'll know. And it said in an adaptive environment, which of the following is true? So it's really helping you demarcate that this is an adaptive thing. This is not a fully plan driven thing. Okay. So I mean, the payoff is going to be huge for those of you who are going through the pilot exam. The payoff is going to be huge because I tell you, all of this stuff we're talking about, and those of you that are also on the Saturday Agile class, when you see these questions, as you practice them, you're going to get better and better and better. Okay. So as you read through, you'll find that some of this stuff is a direct cutout of the PMBOK guide. But it's that time that you guys need a break. We're coming to the 2-hour mark, believe it or not, and we've just done one. So at this point, we are going to stop the recording. And when we come back, we are going to continue talking about a lot of these other tasks right here. Let's see when we come back. Welcome back, my friends, to PMP Exam Mindset. It's a pleasure to have you here today on day 21. Now, I know some of you are watching the series, and you can see that it doesn't follow a straight 1 to 35 in terms of the days, and that's because we want everyone to get a little bit of what they need. Some people need people, some need process, some need business. So the business domain is already all up, all 4 days. Now, this is day 21, continuing with task 7 in the process domain, and this is plan and manage quality of products or deliverables. John Ruskin said, quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent effort. And today I want to ask you the question, in your mind's eye, how will you define quality? Do you have a definition for quality? Well, I like to think of quality as this: 4 things. Number 1, quality is fitness for use. Number 2, quality is customer satisfaction. Number 3, quality is also conformance to requirements. And number 4, quality is also Kaizen, change for the better, continuous improvement. So let's go over those again. 4 things: fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction, and Kaizen. In this section in the book PMP Exam Immersion, we focus on planning and managing the quality of products and deliverables. We talk about establishing quality metrics. What are you going to be measuring? We talk about implementing QA, quality assurance processes, and conducting quality control activities to ensure that the project outputs meet the required standards. So quality in the world of Agile is integrated into the development process. It's built in.
Agile teams use continuous integration, test-driven development, and regular retrospectives to maintain high quality in incremental deliveries. To kind of get more into the flow of quality, I'll ask you a few quick, easy questions here on the right side of the screen, as I usually do. So over here, here's your first one. True or false? In Agile, quality is only assessed at the end of the project. The answer is false. In Agile, quality is built in and assessed continuously throughout the project lifecycle, not just at the end. Practices like CI, continuous integration, TDD, test-driven development, and frequent reviews ensure that quality issues are identified and addressed early and incrementally. Here's the next one. True or false? Test-driven development is a quality management technique used in Agile. All right, and the answer to this is true. When you think about TDD, it's a common Agile practice where tests are written before the code. What does this do for us? It ensures that the code is built to meet requirements and is testable, significantly contributing to the quality of the product. Number 3, true or false? Agile projects prioritize speed over quality. The answer is false. Agile projects aim for a sustainable pace while maintaining high quality. We do not sacrifice quality for speed. The focus is on delivering potentially shippable increments, PSIs, of working software, which inherently implies a commitment to quality. Sacrificing quality for speed leads to technical debt and long-term problems. Number 4, true or false? Regular retrospectives do not contribute to the quality of Agile deliverables. This could be a trick one. Well, the answer to this is, of course, false when you really think about it. Yes, retros happen at the end of each sprint, but they do contribute to quality in the long run by reflecting on processes and identifying root causes of defects and implementing improvements. The team continuously enhances their ability to produce high-quality deliverables and prevent recurring issues. Here's your final question in this set. And true or false? Continuous integration in Agile helps maintain quality by integrating and testing work frequently. And the answer is true. CI, continuous integration, is a practice where developers frequently integrate their code changes into a central repository and automated tests are run. This helps detect integration issues and defects early, maintaining a high level of quality throughout the development process. So there you have it, my friends. That is day 21 at a high level. Let's go into your question for today. Here's your question for today. During a quality audit, it is discovered that a testing procedure critical for ensuring product safety has been consistently bypassed by the development team due to perceived time pressures. No defects related to this bypass have been found yet, but the risk is significant. What is the project manager's immediate and most effective action regarding quality management? Is it A, instruct the team to immediately cease all further development on the affected components until the bypass testing procedure is formally executed and verified for all previous work? Or is it B, document the non-compliance as a high priority risk and schedule a meeting with the team to re-emphasize the importance of quality procedures and adherence? Or is it C, initiate a formal change request to modify the quality management plan, proposing a more streamlined testing procedure that can be completed within the team's current time constraints? Or is it D, implement a zero tolerance policy for quality bypasses, issuing formal warnings to team members found to be non-compliant with established procedures. I'm going to give you some time to think about the answer. All right, so this is not just a quality question. When you dig a little bit deeper, what you find is an ethics concern. This is an ethics concern because quality is our responsibility as project managers. And when you look at the options, you can either ignore it, act like it didn't happen, or you could say, oh, let's put it into a non-compliance risk category and let's schedule a meeting to re-emphasize the importance. You see? Or you could initiate a formal change request to modify the quality management plan. Is that really going to solve the problem? The problem here is people aren't doing what they should. They're cutting corners. It says, has been consistently bypassed by the development team due to perceived time pressures. That's why they're trying to cut corners. So when you think about this, it is unacceptable. You can't keep doing this. And until something is done, nothing changes. And everything that escaped remains out of compliance as well. So your best solution to this, my friends, is to insist that that work be done. Option A. When a critical quality assurance activity, especially one related to safety, is consistently bypassed, the project manager's immediate and most effective action is to halt work on affected components, which is option A, until the procedure is formally executed. This prevents further non-compliant work and prioritizes quality and safety over schedule, mitigating significant potential risk. When you really boil it down, all the other options are either reactive or useless. So documenting non-compliance, what does that do? How does that solve the problem of work that has gone unchecked? You see, it's only looking forward to, oh, let's document this as a risk. Let's schedule a meeting. But it doesn't talk about correcting the problem, even though no defects have been found. But what if they are in the future as a result of skipping this important step? What about C, initiating a formal change request? Again, you are initiating a change request to modify the plan, but that's not the problem. The problem here is the team is circumventing the process. That's the problem. So, D, implement a zero tolerance policy and issuing formal warnings. Again, that's draconian language, firstly. And secondly, it does nothing to correct what has transpired. Option A, instructing the team to stop further development until that formal testing procedure, that important testing procedure, which could even be from a compliance standpoint, is formally executed. Okay, there was a lot of subtlety in this question. A key testing procedure critical for ensuring product safety. And safety, that is also going into the world of ethics. All right, I hope you found that to be valuable. I hope the light bulb came on. Let's go to the actual mindset section. So PMI in task 7 on the process domain, what they're telling you is, we want you to, as a project manager, plan quality in. Plan quality in for products and deliverables. And beyond that, manage quality. Remember, quality in the 49 process discussion has got plan quality management, manage quality, control quality. Plan quality is planning everything that should be done from a quality perspective. Manage quality is really code for quality assurance. It is checking the ongoing work to ensure that it's conforming to the plan. You are executing the project work as planned, as promised. You are not cutting corners. See? And then we have control quality, which is then checking the final deliverable. So the deliverable that you've been working on all the while, this is, in control quality where you finally check it. So coming to this task and understanding that, PMI says, number one, you got to determine the quality standard required for the project deliverables. And these standards, some could be compliance related, health and safety related. We got to be thinking about that right from the beginning in planning. Number two, recommend options for improvement based on quality gaps. So if we're talking about improvement, it means we are already underway. We are in executing, and we need to think about how we can improve. Or we could be in the monitoring and controlling process group. Again, always thinking about how can we improve these quality gaps that we are finding, that we've realized. And lastly, continually survey project deliverable quality. Don't just give up on where you are right now and say, well, we've arrived or we're so good. No, there should be that Kaizen mindedness. So for the exam, your mindset needs to be quality is non-negotiable. Quality is planned in. Quality is also at the end inspected in, but that shouldn't be our default. Our default should be to plan quality in thoroughly and then to manage it, ensure that the process is being followed, checking the work, not the product, but checking the work as it is being done. That's QA. There's a difference between QA and QC. QA is checking the process. QC is checking the product. You see? So there's a difference there. And that, my friends, wraps up task 7. Quality is huge on this exam. I cannot state how many questions they're going to use to test your loyalty. Just like this question tested your loyalty. Will you do something about what they've skipped? Yeah, no defect has been found. But will you be loyal to the process of ensuring that what you planned is followed, even though they try to skip it? Okie dokie, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, smash that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends. And don't forget, you can go on to study.pmsucceed.com. I beg your pardon, study.pmradio.org and pmp.pmradio.org. Those are the two places where you can get additional free videos and the podcast to help you as you prepare. I wish you all the very best, and I'll be talking to you soon in our next episode. Take care and bye for now. Welcome, my friends, to PMP Exam Mindset. Over the past number of days, we've been covering task by task, going through the people domain, and we're eventually going to cover the process and the business domain. Just so you know, a lot of this training is from the book PMP Exam Immersion. PMP Exam Immersion tackles the 35 tasks of the PMP exam bit by bit. So if you were ever in a bind, not knowing how to study for the exam and getting quite frantic, I want you to know that you have a solution to help you in addition to these videos. So we're tackling the 35 tasks step by step. I talk about it. I give you a quick quiz on just one task with one question just to anchor your mind, get that PMP muscle memory into operation. So when you are on the exam, you've already seen tons of questions that are very similar to what you'll be getting. Okay, so let's jump into today. People, task 6, build a team. The quote from Henry Ford says, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success." And this is what teamwork is all about. For the project manager, in the book, we talk about assessing stakeholder skills, the importance of assembling a team whose members complement each other's abilities, and in the realm of Agile, just know that this is an ongoing process. One of the things I would like to begin to add to our curriculum here is some very quick true or false questions before we jump into the main question for the day. So here's our true or false question. True or false? A successful Agile team is made up of members with similar skills to avoid confusion. The answer is false. A successful Agile team thrives on diversity of skills and cross-functionality. Members with complementary skills can cover a broader range of tasks, support each other, and bring different perspectives to problem solving, leading to more robust solutions. 2. True or false? Diversity in teams, in team skills, is not important in Agile project management. Well, again, this is false. The rationale: diversity in team skills is highly important in Agile project management. Cross-functional teams composed of individuals with varied expertise are better equipped to handle diverse challenges, reduce dependencies, and deliver complete increments of work. Number 3, true or false? Building a team in Agile is a one-time event at the start of a project. You can already guess that this is false. Building teams in Agile is an ongoing process. Teams evolve through stages like Tuckman's model, the 5 stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning, and continuous effort is needed to foster collaboration, trust, and high performance through activities like retrospectives, shared learning, and conflict resolution. Number 4, cross-functional teams are a hallmark of Agile methodology. True or false? Well, in the world of Agile frameworks, this is true. Cross-functional teams are a defining characteristic of Agile. These teams possess all the necessary skills to complete a piece of work from start to finish, reducing external dependencies and enabling faster delivery. Your final true or false question for the day: the Agile team building process includes regular reflection and adaptation. This is indeed true. Agile team building involves continuous reflection and adaptation, primarily through retrospectives. Teams regularly assess their process, interactions, and effectiveness, making adjustments to improve their collaboration and performance over time. So, my friends, this is a new format where we took a look at some true or false questions, and now we are going into our actual question for the day. Build a team. Let's read the question, and I'll give you some time to choose the answers. A newly formed project team composed of individuals from various functional departments is struggling with internal dynamics. There are frequent arguments over meeting etiquette, decision-making authority, and how feedback should be given, leading to an unproductive environment. What is the project manager's most effective initial action to address these foundational issues and improve team functionality? Is it A, facilitate a collaborative session where the team collectively defines and agrees upon explicit ground rules for communication, decision making, conflict resolution, and meeting etiquette, fostering shared ownership? Is it B, provide individual coaching to each team member on professional conduct and conflict resolution techniques to mitigate immediate tensions? Is it C, implement a set of predefined organizational ground rules, distributing them to the team and requiring their immediate adherence to standardized behavior? Or is it D, establish a formal escalation matrix for all interpersonal issues, directing team members to report deviations to their functional managers for resolution? I'll give you some time to think about it. All right. Let's take a look at the options and make some conclusions. So, what exactly is the problem here? It says a newly formed project team is struggling with internal dynamics. Their arguments, meeting etiquette, decision-making authority, how feedback should be given. It sounds like they do not have a social contract. So what will help them be able to decide their social contract? So looking at A, facilitate a collaborative session where the team collectively defines and agrees upon ground rules. Right off the bat, that sounds like something that could solve the problem because it's for the related things: communication, decision making, conflict resolution, meeting etiquette. So A may not be a bad option right off the bat. Let's take a look at B. Provide individual coaching to each team member on professional conduct and conflict resolution techniques to mitigate immediate tensions. While this is not bad, there's no congruence and collaboration across the team in getting to this point. You want to make it a team sport. You want to make it collaborative to put everyone on the same page. So I wouldn't go with B. C, implement a set of predefined organizational ground rules, distributing them to the team and requiring their immediate adherence to standardized behavior. When you hear things like that, those are red flags immediately for non-agile realms. So beware of that. Option D, establish a formal escalation matrix for all interpersonal issues. Just take a look at the word all. So we're saying go crying to someone else each and every time, directing team members to report deviations to their functional managers. What a poor use of time. For that reason, my friends, we are going with option A. When building a new team and addressing foundational dynamics, the most effective initial action is to facilitate a collaborative session where the team collectively defines and agrees upon their own ground rules. This fosters shared ownership and commitment, leading to more sustainable improvements in team functionality than imposed rules or individual coaching alone. So, my friends, when you take a look at what we have here in building a team, there are many variables that you need to be aware of. I want to remind you of some of these variables. You got to remember to, number one, be aware of the 5 stages of team development and help people get through the storming stage. Okay. It's also important that you realize there's such a thing as situational leadership in the Hersey-Blanchard model. Know that before you exam, understand it, and put on your thinking cap to explore the different ways you could influence, the different ways you could lead, and how you can help your team overcome obstacles. Okay? Whenever you have a choice of working with people individually or working with them in a collaborative team environment, as long as you are not giving feedback of a personal nature, always use the team environment the team being together to give feedback when it involves everyone, especially when it comes to teaching, it comes to coaching, it comes to mentoring, topics that affect the entire team. It would make sense to do this more collaboratively. Okay? So those are some of the philosophies, my friends. Again, you got to know your Hersey-Blanchard model. You got to know your forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And you got to have the mindedness talked about in the Agile Manifesto to know when to put on that hat. And it will be very obvious from the questions. Okay? So I hope you found this useful. See you next time. Welcome to PMP Exam Mindset. Today we're going into people. The 7th day. Henry Ford says obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal. And today we're talking about addressing and removing impediments for the team. When you think about taking your eye off the goal, these impediments are the frightful things that could overwhelm you. And this is a job of the project manager, the scrum master, the leader, to tackle these impediments, to address these impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team. In Chapter 7 of our book, PMP Exam Immersion, we tackle this squarely from a predictive standpoint and an agile standpoint. You usually see the word impediment in agile, but it could also exist in a predictive context. When you're talking about removing impediments, obstacles, and blockers, an impediment is something that impedes, it slows you down. An obstacle is something that is in your way. You could go over it or around it. But a blocker, you are stopped dead in your tracks and you cannot move. Those are the worst. And your job is to address all three as a PMP. Agile practices involve proactive impediment removal. Agile teams often have a dedicated role like a scrum master focused on clearing obstacles and facilitating smooth progress. As usual, let's get into our true or false questions to warm you up before our main question of the day. Number 1, true or false? The scrum master's role in an agile project is to remove impediments for the team. The general answer to this is true. A core responsibility of the scrum master in agile, specifically Scrum, is to identify and help remove impediments that hinder the team's progress. This can involve facilitating discussions, escalating issues, or directly resolving blockers. Number 2, in Agile, impediments should only be addressed during retrospectives. True or false? The answer? This is false. We should address impediments as soon as they are identified. There's a misnomer that impediments are left to the end, but no, we tackle them as they show up. Impediments should be addressed as soon as they are identified, while retrospectives are a time to reflect on recurring issues. Immediate blockers need immediate attention to maintain flow and avoid delays. Daily stand-ups are often used to surface these impediments. Number 3, impediments in a project can sometimes go unaddressed without any impact on the project's progress. Well, this generally is false. Why is it false? It's because when we talk about impediments, the general word is impede, an impedance, remember? So unaddressed impediments, obstacles, or blockers will at some point, inevitably, whether we like it or not, impact a project's progress, leading to delays, increased cost, reduced quality, or decreased team morale. Proactive removal is essential for maintaining momentum. 4, addressing impediments is the sole responsibility of the project manager. True or false? The answer to this is, again, false. We do not leave it just to the project manager or scrum master. While they play a key role in addressing impediments, it is often a shared responsibility in the world of Agile. The team is encouraged to identify and, where possible, resolve blockers themselves, escalating when necessary. Final one, true or false? Agile teams are expected to self-organize to address and remove impediments. And the answer to this is true. In the world of Agile, we talk about teams being empowered and expected to self-organize, which includes actively identifying and working to remove their own impediments. The Scrum Master or Project Manager supports them in this effort, especially for blockers beyond the team's control. So there you have it. That is part 1 of our work for today. Let's take a look at our question for the day. In an Agile project, the Scrum Master observes a recurring pattern where the development team frequently gets blocked by external dependencies, for example, waiting for approvals from other departments, access to specific environments. These impediments are not being proactively resolved, leading to sprint delays. What is the Scrum Master's most effective action to address and remove these impediments? A. Instruct the team to document all impediments in a shared log that is visible and accessible to all stakeholders. Assign a dedicated team member or rotating role to track the status of each impediment, coordinate follow-up actions, and ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. Regularly review the log during retrospectives or planning sessions to identify patterns and opportunities for long-term improvement. Is it B? Escalate each individual impediment to senior management for immediate attention and resolution. Clearly communicate the impact of each blocker on sprint goals, delivery timelines, and team morale. Provide contextual data and recommend potential solutions to help leadership make informed decisions quickly and allocate necessary resources to remove the barriers effectively. Is it C? Proactively identify systemic impediments by analyzing recurring blockers, then collaborate with relevant external stakeholders and organizational leaders to remove root causes and streamline cross-functional processes? Or is it D? Increase the frequency and depth of daily stand-up meetings to ensure early identification of impediments and more frequent discussions of emerging blockers. Encourage open communication, active listening, and immediate peer-to-peer support to resolve issues quickly. I'll let you think about it for a few moments. All right, do hit the pause button if you need more time, but our time is up for this question. Taking a look at all the options, some options are better than others. Some options are just flat out wrong. Let's look at option D and go up. D states increase the frequency and depth of daily stand-up meetings to ensure early identification. Well, you don't have to elongate the meeting to identify these impediments. There's a reason why in the world of Scrum, 15 minutes is recommended. You are a Scrum Master, so this is obviously a Scrum environment. D is a no-no. We don't do that. Now, even though some of the stuff that it's talking about here is nice sounding, encourage open communication and so on, all that stuff is good, but what came before cannot be accepted, right? You can still get a decent meeting, identify the impediments, and then take them offline for those who it concerns. Everyone in the meeting may not be concerned with that particular impediment. So D will be cancelled. Let's take a look at C. Proactively identify systemic impediments by analyzing recurring blockers. So this means you're taking a look from a high level. That's what we mean by systemic. Those that occur regularly. We want to understand those, and then we want to hit the root cause of those impediments. That is not a bad idea. Let's take a look at B. Escalate each individual impediment. That is asking you to escalate each impediment to senior management. Then what is your function as a Scrum Master? So it's definitely not B. A. Instruct the team to document all impediments in a shared log that is visible and accessible to all stakeholders. There's really no need for all stakeholders to be in on all impediments. That right there is a red flag. And it says assign a dedicated team member. You don't assign team members in this world. They're not your servants. You are the scrum master and you're a servant leader. So you don't say, hey, Phil, you take a list of all the impediments. That wouldn't make sense. So we can cancel A, B, and D. And the best option, my friends, is option C. The rationale, the scrum master's role extends beyond merely identifying impediments. It's about actively removing them. For recurring systemic blockers, the most effective action is to proactively identify their root causes and then collaborate with external stakeholders and organizational leaders to remove these systemic issues, preventing future occurrences rather than just reactively managing them. Getting into the meat of task 7 in the content outline. Again, I've explained impediments impede, obstacles are in your way, but blockers stop you dead in your tracks. You gotta, first of all, determine the critical impediments, those that have stopped you dead in your tracks, those that have stopped other people from progressing. You want to make sure you identify those, be they blockers, be they obstacles. Determine those critical ones first, then prioritize them. In the world of Agile, it's not uncommon for Agile leaders to have impediment logs. Some teams have them. They're not as common in the world of Scrum, definitely not part of the Scrum guide, but people do keep these impediments to keep track of them. It's just common sense. So if you see that word on the exam, impediment log, don't let it take you by surprise. Number 3, use your network to implement solutions to remove impediments. You as a servant leader, one of your strong points should be building community and connecting people to other people who can help and knowing where to get help regarding these impediments, obstacles, and blockers. So use your network to remove those. And lastly, reassess continually to ensure impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team are being addressed. This is the work of the Scrum Master, and also it should be the work of the project manager. Bear in mind that when we say impediments, an impediment is the result of something that was once a risk. So a risk is an impediment waiting to happen. If the PM does a good job of risk management, you have less of these impediments, which we also call issues in the world of traditional project management. And that's pretty much the mindset. Don't send team members to do stuff that is really your job, but at the same time, you want them to understand that if they can solve their own impediments or help each other's peer to peer do that, then they absolutely should. Okay? Don't forget, my friends, if you are looking for training and coaching for the PMP exam that is engaging, that takes you to that next level and beyond, even beyond the PMP exam itself, you need to be in my elite PMP training. Go to tinyurl.com/elite PMP. Again, tinyurl.com/elite PMP. This course will get you to ship shape for your exam and take you through a deeper understanding for not only the exam, but also your professional journey as a certified PMP. So when you are certified, you truly know all the ins and outs of this stuff. Thank you for joining me. I wish you all the very best as you prep for the exam. Remember that this is a journey of many days, and our goal is not volume. Our goal is actually to understand each task. So we're taking down each one of the 35. We've done quite well, and I believe we are on to roughly 20 right now. We've done a few from people. We've done majority of the ones in process, and we've done all of business. We are going to continue the journey, okay? So don't feel the journey's over. We're just getting into some really important stuff in people and in process. And hopefully within the next 30 days, we'll be done with this curriculum. So smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. one more thing before I go, my friends. I should make it clear because the question that we encountered today, it was it was pretty aggressive, to be honest. There was a lot of verbiage in the question. I want to make it clear that even though the question had a lot of content, on the real exam, you're not going to have a whole lot of questions that are that long, but you do need to get used to answering long questions. Again, the reason why it was made significantly long was to sensitize you to the importance of getting quick as you read. Now, if you have accommodations on the exam, which means maybe you've approached PMI for medical conditions or mobility issues or ADHD or ADD and things like that, then you may be given additional time on the exam to complete it. But if not, under all those other circumstances, you are given just 1 minute 15 seconds roughly for each question. And that means you got to get through these large chunks of text in a short amount of time. Again, this is not the norm, but it behooves you to get used to tackling big wordy questions so that if you encounter those on the exam, you will be quick and get through conveniently. Also remember that your thinking processing, it changes when you are under pressure of the real exam because there's more at stake. There's the money, there's a 3 strikes and you're out. All of those things put added pressure on your psyche. So you really need to be practicing a lot of questions as you get ready for your exam. If you haven't got a good bank of questions, I also want to recommend pmpdoctor.com. Go to pmpdoctor.com and see the question bank that we have. We have for each task 6 or even more questions, and we have mock exams on top of that. So go to pmpdoctor.com, look into that. That might be your way of getting really good for this exam. Thank you once again. All the very best, and bye for now. Welcome to day 10 of our PMP exam mindset under the people domain. The great Stephen Covey said the biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand. We listen to reply. Isn't that true? In the world of project management, it is important that the project manager spends time actively listening first before seeking to be understood. In chapter 10 of our book, PMP Exam Immersion, which you can find everywhere books are sold, we emphasize the importance of building a shared understanding, which means not just sending a message, but ensuring there's a common understanding of that message. It's important for the team members and stakeholders to ensure clarity and alignment on project goals. Agile processes prioritize shared understanding through interactive communication, collaborative decision making, and reflective practices like retrospectives and reviews. Let's jump into a few true or false questions to just get warmed up. Question number 1, true or false? Building a shared understanding is not a focus in Agile projects. The answer to that is false. Building a shared understanding is a central tenet of Agile. Agile practices like daily stand-ups, backlog refinement, and sprint reviews are designed to ensure all team members and stakeholders have a common understanding of the project's goals, progress, and priorities. Number 2, true or false? Agile teams rely solely on documentation to build a shared understanding. The answer to this is false. While documentation has its place, Agile teams prioritize working software, working product over comprehensive documentation, and individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Shared understanding is primarily built through frequent face-to-face or virtual equivalent communication, collaboration, and direct interaction, not solely through documents. Number 3, true or false? Interactive communication is a key element in building a shared understanding. Absolutely correct. Remember, in the world of communication, we have interactive communication, push communication, and pull communication. And I often refer to this as the PIP: push, interactive, pull. However, you're going to remember that. But interactive communication is real time exchange. Interactive communication, like discussions, brainstorming sessions, and direct conversations, is crucial for building a shared understanding. It allows for immediate clarification, questions, and the co creation of knowledge, ensuring everyone is on the same page. Number four, true or false? Reflective practices such as retrospectives do not contribute to a shared understanding in agile teams. The answer is, of course, false. Retrospectives are dedicated sessions where agile teams reflect on their past sprint, discussing what went well and what could be improved, and how to implement those improvements. The process significantly contributes to a shared understanding of team dynamics, processes, and challenges. Final question: true or false? A shared understanding among team members can reduce misunderstandings and streamline project progress. And the answer is true. When team members and stakeholders have a shared understanding of goals, requirements, and processes, it minimizes misinterpretations, it reduces rework, and it streamlines decision making, leading to more efficient and effective project progress. Now that we're done with the true or false questions, let's jump into our question of the day for People Task 10. Here is the question. In an aerospace manufacturing project, the quality assurance team is rejecting parts as non-conforming. Engineering states the design drawings were revised. The supplier reports they never received the latest revision. Procurement points to a contract clause requiring use of current drawings. Work has stopped. What is the most effective way to establish a shared understanding? Is it A, direct quality assurance to accept the current batch through a temporary deviation waiver, allowing production to continue and update drawings later to regain schedule? Is it B, escalate to senior management and legal to declare the supplier responsible for rework under the contract and compel immediate correction? Is it C, circulate the latest drawings to all parties with acknowledgement receipts and instruct production to restart once confirmations are received? Or is it D, facilitate a records-based review of change logs, transmittals, and contract references, identify the root cause of the misunderstanding, confirm the controlling documents with all parties, and document consensus on the path forward? I'll give you some time to think about the possible answer. All right, let's examine the options. Taking a look at the options in the context of the final question, which says, what is the most effective way to establish a shared understanding? To get a shared understanding, it's not having a temporary waiver and saying, all right, let's just continue production and update drawings later. No, that doesn't put anyone on the same page. That's ignoring that there's a problem that needs resolve. There's a misunderstanding that needs dialogue. So it's not A. B says escalate to senior management. You don't need to do that. You don't need to declare the supplier responsible because you haven't heard them out. Both parties need to hear each person out. From what this is reading in the question, the drawings did not get to the supplier. So judging them and saying you're to blame, it doesn't help. You'll still be off, not understanding why the misunderstanding happened. Option C, circulate the latest drawings to all parties with acknowledgement receipts and instruct production to restart. You're not getting down to the bottom of the misunderstanding. You see, you're just suggesting things to do to remedy the work, but you're still not getting down to the crux of the misunderstanding. Let's take a look at D. Facilitate a records-based review of change logs, transmittals, and contract references, identifying the root cause of the misunderstanding. That's key. Confirm the controlling documents with all parties and document consensus on the path forward. That is in the spirit of the PMI. So the best answer, my friends, is D. Building shared understanding means breaking down the situation, investigating potential misunderstandings, surveying necessary parties to reach consensus, and supporting the agreed outcome with evidence. All right, with that said, let's take a look at what the PMI have in the content outline. Task 10, build a shared understanding. Break down the situation to identify the root cause of a misunderstanding. Survey all necessary parties to reach consensus. Consensus is a very important word because it means we all agree on this solution, we're all on the same page. Number 3, support the outcome of the parties' agreement. Whatever the party agrees on, we're going to go with that collectively. And 4, investigate potential misunderstandings. When you do all of these as you approach a question, the likelihood of you getting the question correct increases because you're not taking people for granted. You're not being the holier than thou person that says, I'm right and everyone else is wrong. No, you're bringing everyone to the table and hearing them out, and they are hearing you out because it's a two-way street. All right, my friends. Well, I hope this gave you context for task 10. Remember, if you're studying for the PMP exam and you need coaching, go on down to tinyurl.com/elite PMP. You can find my course on Udemy over there. And if you are looking for CAPM coaching and training, it is tinyurl.com/elite CAPM. Thank you for joining me. I wish you all the very best as you continue studying. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Hello, my awesome project managers. Welcome once again to PMP Exam Mindset. We're in the people domain and onto task 8. Task 8 simply reads, negotiate project agreements. Chapter 8 of our book goes into what agreements is all about. When we talk about agreements, there's a tendency to think money, procurement, but that's not what this is all about only. You see, when we talk about negotiating, you could negotiate costs, but you could also negotiate scope. You can negotiate terms. You could negotiate frequency of communication. You could negotiate pattern of meetings. So this chapter guides the reader through the intricacies of forming agreements that align with the project's goals and the organization's values. In the world of Agile, negotiation focuses on collaboration, finding solutions that offer value to all parties, often requiring flexibility and adaptability from the project manager. Let's go on to our true or false questions for the day. Number 1, agile negotiations aim to benefit one party over the other. True or false? The answer to this is false. We look for win-win in the world of agile. Agile negotiation emphasizes collaborative win-win outcomes, and the goal is to find solutions that deliver value to all parties involved, fostering trust and long-term relationships, rather than seeking to gain an advantage over another party. Number 2, flexibility is not important in project negotiations. True or false? Well, of course, you know that's false. Flexibility is highly important in project negotiations, especially in dynamic environments. Being adaptable to changing circumstances and open to creative solutions can add to more successful agreements and better project outcomes. Number 3, true or false? Successful negotiations in project management often require adaptability. And that is true. You got to meet whoever you're negotiating with sometimes in the middle of the road. Adaptability is a key trait for successful negotiators in project management. The ability to adjust strategies, explore different options,
and respond to new information helps in reaching mutually beneficial agreements. Number 4, in agile projects, negotiation is a one-time event at the beginning. And the answer is false. In agile projects, negotiation is an ongoing process, not a one-time event. Discussions around scope, priorities, resources, and technical approaches happen continuously. For example, during sprint planning, backlog refinement as well to ensure alignment and adaptability. Final question, number 5, true or false? Good negotiation skills can lead to better project outcomes and stakeholder satisfaction. And the answer is true. Effective negotiation skills are crucial for project success. They help in securing necessary resources, resolving conflicts, aligning expectations, and establishing clear agreements, all of which contribute to better project outcomes and higher stakeholder satisfaction. Let's go on to our question for the day. Your project requires integration with a fraud detection service from a sole provider. The vendor proposes premium service levels, step-up pricing, and broad rights to audit your systems. The sponsor emphasizes maintaining the release date, while procurement is concerned about cost. What should you do next to ensure the negotiation strategy aligns with project objectives? Is it A, begin with a very low price anchor, remove audit clauses immediately, and postpone all service level discussions until testing is complete to preserve the schedule? Is it B, request the vendor's standard pricing packages, circulate them for quick executive approval, and proceed to contract to avoid missing the release date? Is it C, define negotiation boundaries, identify non-negotiable service requirements, determine trade-offs on price and terms, align with legal and procurement, and then lead a structured interest-based negotiation? Or is it D, accept the vendor's commercial terms as written, but add a termination for convenience clause so the organization can exit later if cost or performance becomes unacceptable? I'll give you some time to think about the possible answer to this question. All right, hit the pause button if you need more time, but let's explore possible options for this. If we take a look at the question, we can see that there are so many parameters to negotiate, and you need to understand those that are pressing. Vendor proposes premium service levels and step-up pricing and broad rights to audit your system. Can you live with that? If not, which of those terms disturbs you? Which of those terms concerns the vendor or the stakeholders, right? Which of those is non-negotiable for either party? Then the sponsor is talking about maintaining the release date. That is important to the sponsor. You should consider that when you're negotiating. And it says procurement is concerned about costs. So you've got a procurement department that is cost conscious, you've got a sponsor who is date conscious, and you might have other stakeholders that are concerned with other things that are not explicitly mentioned here. So your best bet is not to begin with a very low price anchor. That's not in the spirit of sensible negotiations because the vendor has already proposed premium service levels and step up pricing, right? If you look at option B, request the vendor's standard pricing packages and circulate them for quick executive approval. You're doing things quick, but you're cutting corners, and you might miss out on the things that are important to other stakeholders. If you look at C, defining the boundaries and non-negotiable service requirements, that is a very important step in any negotiation. Also, when it comes to trade-offs, you have to understand what you can trade off and what you will not, where you are willing to budge and where you will not. And you also need to align with the other stakeholders, such as legal and procurement. See, if you look at D, accepting the vendor's commercial terms as written without any modification, that is not even in the spirit of good negotiation, and it's not the way to proceed. So the more thoughtful and careful way to proceed will be option C. Let's explore why. Effective negotiation starts with analyzing the bounds for the negotiation, agreeing priorities, aligning stakeholders, and using a deliberate strategy that verifies project objectives will be met, not might be met, but you're absolutely certain that this will result in those project objectives being met. The other options defer essential protections or trade control for speed. A. Going with the lowest price first in a negotiation could also generate bad blood in the grand scheme, right? Removing audit clauses and postponing all service level discussions, it could come across as being dismissive and disrespectful. And B, just going with standard pricing and trying to get straight into the money part without the negotiation of the soft aspects of the negotiation could end up backfiring. So when all is said and done, A, B, and D, just accepting the vendor's terms, those will not result in a favorable negotiation. As a project manager, always be ready to negotiate the boundaries, to talk about the boundaries of the negotiation, to identify things that are negotiable and things that are not negotiable, to also identify what is your best alternative. If option A doesn't work, what else would you look for? All right, so the answer to that is C. All right, my friends, let's take a look at the PMP exam content outline for negotiate project agreements. You have a number of things the PMI is advocating that you do. And the very first one is you got to negotiate the bounds for the negotiation, the boundaries. What will we accept? What will we not accept? What is outside the realm of this negotiation? And again, it doesn't have to be money. It could be negotiating anything. The second one is assess priorities. What is top priority for you and determine what is your ultimate objective. Coming into a negotiation without these means it just becomes a toss up and you get thrown around. You don't want that to be the case. So you got to come in with intention. Participate in agreement negotiations. Don't just take the standard. If there needs to be some customization of features or aspects, then by all means ensure that does happen. Lastly, it reads, determine a negotiation strategy. Every good project manager should have a strategy going into a negotiation. This is who will speak first. This is how we'll conduct ourselves. This is how we'll comport ourselves. This is what will happen if we do not get X, Y, or Z offer. And that's the way to do it, my friends. Bear in mind that your exam is going to test you not just on negotiating money, but on negotiating for things like resources, for communication terms, and many more. I hope you're enjoying this. If you haven't watched the other episodes, you can find them on the channel. If you've enjoyed this one, smash the like button, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Welcome, my esteemed project managers, to PMP Exam Mindset. Always a pleasure to be bringing these lessons to you. Today, we're talking about collaborating with stakeholders. You probably have already thought by now the reason why we run the project is for the stakeholders. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And this is a reflection on what great collaboration is like with our stakeholders. Collaboration is the central theme of Chapter 9 in PMP Exam Immersion, which you can find on Amazon or where books are sold. In that book, we explore the importance of working alongside stakeholders from a traditional perspective, from a hybrid and agile perspective,
to ensure that all their needs are met and their contributions are valued. You see, on the exam, you may very well have questions that test you from a hybrid perspective. They don't all need to be written with the same language you see in the PMBOK guide. They could come from an agile perspective. And agile collaboration involves engaging stakeholders regularly to ensure the project remains aligned with customer needs and that feedback is integrated into the project quickly. Let's go to our true or false questions for today. Number one, true or false? Collaboration with stakeholders is not necessary in agile methodologies. This is false. You should be collaborating with your stakeholders. It is a fundamental principle of Agile. The Agile Manifesto explicitly states customer satisfaction, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and that emphasizes continuous engagement to ensure the product meets evolving needs. Number two, true or false? Agile methodologies recommend involving stakeholders only at project milestones. This is false. In the world of Agile, we want to get our customers involved as frequently as possible. We advocate in the world of Agile for frequent and continuous involvement of stakeholders, not just at milestones. This includes regular feedback loops, sprint reviews, daily interactions, and collaborative decision making to ensure constant alignment. Number three, true or false? Regular stakeholder engagement can help ensure that a project meets its objectives, and that is true. Regular stakeholder engagement ensures that their needs and expectations are continuously understood and addressed. This proactive approach helps in adapting the project to changing requirements and ultimately ensures that the final product meets its objectives and delivers value. Number four, true or false? Stakeholders do not need to be involved in the feedback loop of an agile project. The answer is false. Stakeholders are critical participants in the feedback loop of an agile project. Their input during sprint reviews and other interactions is essential for validating increments, refining requirements, and ensuring the product evolves in the right direction. Final one, number five, true or false? Effective stakeholder collaboration can improve agility and responsiveness to change. And that is true. When stakeholders are actively collaborating, communication flows more freely, decisions can be made more quickly, and feedback is integrated rapidly. This significantly enhances the project's agility and its ability to respond effectively to changes. All right, let's jump into our question for the day. Remember, the purpose of these questions is to give you some inkling into what could present itself style-wise on the exam. So you don't expect to see these questions verbatim, but you do expect to apply the knowledge, right? A statewide health system must go live soon. Rural clinics want phone-first flow works. Hospitals require electronic health record integration. Regulators emphasize accessibility, and patient advocates insist on multilingual support. Tension is increasing. What is the most effective action to optimize alignment between stakeholder needs and project objectives? Is it A, conduct a stakeholder analysis, identify engagement needs, and facilitate a joint workshop to surface trade-offs, document agreements, and publish a shared plan of action? Or is it B, ask the sponsor to designate a single requirement as the primary priority and communicate the decision broadly to reduce conflict and speed delivery? Or is it C, create separate implementation roadmaps for each stakeholder group and commit to delivering each set of needs fully in later phases? And lastly,
extend the deadline to allow a comprehensive survey of all stakeholders before returning to planning and execution. I'll give you some time to think about the answer. All right, let's take a look at the potential answers. So we can read, what is the most effective action to optimize alignment between what the stakeholders need and project objectives? A, having a stakeholder analysis, identifying needs, and a joint workshop is priceless. B, asking the sponsor to designate a single requirement as the primary priority. That doesn't even make much sense when we're talking about competing priorities, you see, because it says tension is increasing. What is the most effective action to optimize alignment between stakeholder needs? So there are multiple needs, not just one. Choosing one as a priority out of everything else could make the stakeholders feel they're not being heard. It says, as a primary priority, and communicate the decision broadly to reduce conflict. That will actually do the opposite. C, create separate implementation roadmaps. Again, doing things in silos. Is it possible? Yes, it is. But we have competing requests from stakeholders for one system. It says a statewide telehealth system must go live soon. So factoring each requirement into a silo is not really helpful, which is what option C is suggesting. Create separate implementation roadmaps for each stakeholder. Seriously? No, that's not a good option. Option D, extend the deadline to allow a comprehensive survey of all stakeholders before returning to planning and execution. That doesn't even really make sense because you are trying to do one thing, most effective action to optimize alignment. And where you're trying to optimize alignment, you must hear thoughts dynamically. You must process dynamically. So stakeholder analysis, option A, identifying engagement needs and facilitating a joint workshop to surface trade-offs, that would be the way forward. Okay, so for that reason, best answer is A. Collaboration requires evaluating engagement needs and using inclusive forums to align expectations with objectives while building trust. Centralizing decisions or fragmenting promises reduces alignment. All right. Let's move on to task 9 summary. When we talk about collaborating with stakeholders, it's very important that you remember these are the people for which the product, service, or result is being created. So they're very important. Secondly, you should optimize alignment between stakeholder needs, expectations, and project objectives. This is a lot of communication and a lot of facilitation. Finally, it says build trust and influence stakeholders to accomplish project objectives. You build trust with intentionality by doing what you say, by being pragmatic, by being hands-on, by helping the customer see that you are still a great candidate for this role, whatever the role is, program or project management. All right, and with that, we are done taking a look at task 10, build shared understanding. I hope it gave you a good overview of the task, and if it did, smash the like button, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Welcome to PMP Exam Mindset, where we talk about all things PMP across the 35 tasks. Today, we're going into day 26, and it's task 12. It states, manage project artifacts. Da Vinci says simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. As you manage artifacts, I often tell people you got to keep it simple, because in some organizations, they get sidetracked by number of artifacts as opposed to the effectiveness. In our book PMP Exam Immersion, we discuss the management of project artifacts, documents, plans, reports, other records that are generated during the project, and it focuses on organizing, maintaining, and ensuring that these artifacts are accessible and useful for decision making and project tracking. Now, when I say artifacts, what comes to your mind? I'm curious. If you're thinking about plans, baselines, configuration, documentation, if you're thinking about drawings, then you're on the right track. Those are the kind of things we're talking about. In the world of Agile, we also have artifacts. There are 3 in the world of Scrum. There's the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the increment. In Agile, it's all about maintaining simplicity and relevance. When we talk about the world of Scrum in particular, that's where we talk about the product backlog, the sprint backlog, but in general Agile, it might be called iteration backlog. And then you have burn down charts and many other artifacts. And those are updated regularly to reflect the current state of the project. Let's move into another section here. Let's go into the world of the true and false questions. Because whenever we meet, we do these true or falses just to get you into that mind space before we look at our question for the day. So, true or false, in Agile, extensive documentation is always preferred over working software. The answer is false. The Agile Manifesto values working software over comprehensive documentation. While documentation is necessary, Agile prioritizes delivering functional increments over exhaustive paperwork. Artifacts should be lean, relevant, and just enough to support the team's work. Number 2, Agile artifact management requires frequent updates to reflect the current project state. Well, think about it. You're in an Agile environment, and as you're working, things change rapidly, and that's why you have velocity charts showing you by the day breakdowns, which is different from the world of traditional mostly. Agile artifacts like the product backlog, sprint backlog, burn down charts, they are dynamic and require frequent updates. This ensures they accurately reflect the current state of the project progress and priorities, providing transparency and enabling informed decisions. Number 3, true or false, burn down charts are not a common artifact in Agile project management. Well, this is false because we use burn down charts a lot in the world of Agile. We value this particular artifact in our project management of an Agile nature, especially in Scrum. Now, while it's not a mandatory part of Scrum, you have a lot of Scrum teams that use this. They visually track the remaining work in a sprint or project over time, and they provide quick overview of progress and helping identify potential issues. Number 4, true or false, Agile projects keep all artifacts indefinitely, regardless of their current relevance. But when you think about it, your product backlog, your sprint backlog, those will go away, won't they? So Agile promotes simplicity. It's not about keeping stacks and stacks of sprint backlogs or product backlogs. That's not to say that these days tools cannot store that information, but that's not our default. Artifacts should be maintained only as long as they provide value. Obsolete or irrelevant artifacts are typically archived or discarded to avoid clutter and maintain focus on current work. Number 5, simplicity in artifact management is a key principle in Agile. And the answer is, of course, true. We want to keep things as simple as possible. Simplicity is core in Agile, and this applies to artifact management where the focus is on creating and maintaining only those artifacts that are truly necessary and provide clear value, avoiding unnecessary complexity and overhead. So, my friends, that is it for our first section here, taking a look at the true or falses and the overarching plan. Why don't we go into our question for today? A question for today, again, we're going into the world of artifacts, and it reads, in a complex project with multiple iterations and extensive documentation, the project team is struggling to locate the latest versions of key design documents, requirements, specifications, and test plans. This is causing confusion and rework. What is the project manager's most effective action to manage project artifacts and ensure their accessibility and accuracy? Is it A, mandate the use of a single centralized document repository and implement strict version control protocols, providing training to the team on proper document management practices? Is it B, assign a dedicated document controller to manage all project artifacts, centralizing responsibility and reducing the burden of individual team members? Or is it C, collaborate with team members and stakeholders to conduct regular audits of project documentation to identify missing or outdated artifacts and then manually correct or update them as needed? Or is it D, encourage team members to maintain their own local copies of frequently used documents, ensuring quick access and personnel efficiency? So I'll give you some time to think about the answer and choose the right one. All right, our time is just about rounded up now. Let us discontinue and let's think about the logic. So what is the problem here? They're struggling to locate latest versions of key documents and other things. It's causing confusion and rework. So let's start from the beginning. Should you encourage team members to maintain their own local copies? No, you need to work together, right? Because one person could be making an update and someone wants it immediately after. So you don't want multiple copies flying all over the place. So it's just best to have one copy. So D is not a very good solution. C, collaborate with team members and stakeholders to conduct regular audits of project documentation to identify missing or outdated artifacts and then manually correct or update them as needed. So the problem here, again, is the team is struggling to locate these latest versions and it's causing rework. That's the major problem. If the team is able to overcome that challenge, they're going to be good. So collaborating with team members, stakeholders, regular audits, what does that do? How does the audit help? Right? Even though regular audits are good, but this will not solve the problem right now. We need something that can solve the problem right now. So I wouldn't choose B. I wouldn't choose C. Let's go to B. Assign a dedicated document controller to manage all project artifacts, centralizing responsibility and reducing the burden on individual team members. This is, again, not the best way to proceed. So managing all artifacts through one person could actually lead to more confusion, because when these team members need these documents, like immediately, their hands are tied. That's not very efficient. So let's take a look at A. Mandate the use of a single centralized document repository and implement strict version control protocols. And it's okay to have version control. Version control is definitely needed. Providing training to the team on proper document management practices. So it seems like what the team is lacking is that exposure to know, where do I go for this? How do I access it? What are the practices? That's what it is. And as a result of them not able to pull the latest versions, it's causing confusion and rework, because they're probably basing their planning at their task level on something that is not even relevant. So the best and most effective action here is to get on top of this, ensure that there's a single centralized repository. And yes, there does have to be strict control, but you're going to provide training on proper document management. All the other options, they're either reactive, like a dedicated controller is not going to help people get what they want. To have to go through this person is probably going to end up being frustrating. C, regular audits doesn't take away the now. You're talking about the future. What about the now? And D, encourage team members to maintain their own local copies. That is just like a throwaway option. All right, so let's take a look. The answer to this is A. The answer to that question was A, and the rationale: to address issues with locating and ensuring accuracy of project artifacts, the project manager should implement a robust system. Mandating a centralized repository with strict version control and providing training ensures that all team members access the correct latest versions, reducing confusion and rework. Other options are less systematic or can exacerbate the problem. All right, my friends, to round up, let's get into the mindset pretty quick. Task 12, manage project artifacts. Number 1, determine the requirements for those artifacts. The 5 W's: what, when, where, who, why, and how. The 5 W's and the H know it regarding the artifacts. It helps guide your thinking. Validate that the project information is kept up to date. In other words, version control, and accessible to all stakeholders. And finally, continually assess the effectiveness of the management of the project artifacts. Right? The artifacts are in your jurisdiction. That's why they call project artifacts. You got to take care of those artifacts. You got to continually assess the effectiveness. And if they're not working, if they're not adding value to the team, well, you very well should have a discussion about that, right? So the effectiveness: don't use artifacts just because it exists. Use artifacts because it adds value to the team. And that pretty much is the mindset for managed project artifacts, my friends. I hope you found this useful. Remember, I have training at tinyurl.com/elite PMP, or if you're taking the CAPM, just replace that /CAPM, elite CAPM, and you'll be able to access the course. All right, my friends, all the very best. Speak to you soon, and bye for now. Welcome to PMP Exam Mindset, Day 27, the Process Domain, and Task 13. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I hope you're enjoying this series. If you have been getting value, do smash the like button, and let's jump straight in. Charles Dickens says, methods are the masters of masters. And in this task, the method you use is the key to mastery in project management on that particular project. And it says, determine appropriate project methodology, methods, and practices. Why is this so important? It is very important because if you are using the wrong approach to manage a project, you are likely to fail or find it extremely difficult. In our book, PMP Exam Immersion, we explore the selection of appropriate project methodologies and practices, emphasizing the need to align them with project goals. You shouldn't use traditional for everything or agile for everything. You could use a hybrid. So the idea is to understand the context of the project, the goals, the team, the dynamics, and the organizational context, and then you can properly choose. In today's session, we're going to be talking about this, the Stacy model. You can see in the Stacy model, we have 2 axes. We have the y-axis, which is all about scope, and then we have the x-axis, which is all about the technicality. There is a place to be in the agile realm, which will be when you are tending towards complexity and even towards anarchy. You got to be agile and bring things down to an incremental and iterative approach. Now, if you're all the way down at the bottom left in the simple zone, it's okay to use a traditional approach or a predictive approach. So you need to pick the process based on your project and stick with the process. Otherwise, you could potentially cause many swirls, a lot of change in the team, and people doing the work will not be happy. Always get the team into a room and get on the same page with the method to be used, whether it is predictive, whether it is agile or hybrid. Agile methods are chosen based on their suitability to project requirements and team structure. Key considerations include the level of change anticipated, the complexity of the project, as I showed you in the Stacy model, and the need for customer involvement. With that said, let's move on to our true or false questions for the day. True or false, one project methodology fits all types of projects in Agile. And of course, the answer is false because we have various Agile approaches, various frameworks. Scrum and Kanban are just a couple of them. Number 2, true or false, the complexity of the project is not a factor in selecting an Agile methodology. Of course, you know this is false. Project complexity is a significant factor. Highly complex projects with evolving requirements often benefit from adaptive Agile methodologies, while less complex or more predictable projects might use a lighter Agile approach or even a hybrid model. True or false? Customer involvement is a critical consideration in choosing an Agile methodology. And the answer to this is of course true. In order for you to roll in the world of Agile, you must be in constant touch with the customer. It's a critical consideration. Methodologies that emphasize continuous customer collaboration, like Scrum, are well suited when frequent feedback and evolving requirements are expected, ensuring the product aligns closely with the customer needs. Number 4, true or false? Agile methodologies are rigid and cannot be tailored to specific project needs. That would be an oxymoron, wouldn't it? So it's false. Agile methodologies are frameworks that are meant to be tailored and adapted to specific project needs and organizational context. The principle is to find what works best for the team and the project rather than rigidly adhering to a prescribed set of rules. Number 5, true or false? Team dynamics should be considered when selecting a project methodology in Agile. Well, of course you should. Team dynamics include team size, experience with Agile, self-organization, maturity, and communication styles. These are all important factors. A methodology should support and enhance the team's ability to work effectively together. Now that we're done taking a look at all of the true or false and the overview for today, let's move into our question of the day, and it reads: the project involves developing a new product with highly uncertain requirements and a rapidly evolving market, but also includes integrating with a legacy system that has fixed, well-defined interfaces. The organization is new to Agile but values rapid feedback. What is the project manager's best recommendation for the project methodology, methods, and practices? Is it A, a purely predictive waterfall approach to ensure strict control over the legacy system integration and minimize risk in new product development? Is it B, a purely agile Scrum approach to maximize adaptability to evolving market requirements and leverage rapid feedback cycles, accepting potential integration challenges? Is it C, a hybrid approach utilizing Agile for the new product development with iterative cycles and continuous feedback, while employing a predictive approach for legacy system integration with clear interface agreements? Or is it D, a phased approach where legacy system integration is completed first using a predictive model, followed by the new product development using an agile model in a sequential manner? I'll give you some time to think about this answer.
All right, my friends, let's examine what the potential answer could be. Now, in questions like this, you need to understand the technology at play. You're developing a new product. It has highly uncertain requirements, so an agile approach will likely work well for that. But it also includes integrating with a legacy system that has fixed, well-defined interfaces. The organization is new to agile, but values rapid feedback. With that in mind, you know that A will be outrightly wrong to use a predictive, purely waterfall approach. That would not make sense because you have a new product. So, the fact you have a new product means you need to think some agile. Now, in the world of agile, you should understand that phases generally are not used. D would be one of those, I suspect something kind of options, because it says a phased approach where the legacy system integration is completed first. You don't integrate first. You have to develop your new product first, and then you integrate. So the timing and the sequence of D is off. Not to mention the fact that in the world of agile, we have iterations, not phases. So let's disqualify A and let's disqualify D. Taking a look at B, a purely Scrum approach wouldn't make sense because you're working with a legacy system which has a more rigid, defined interface. Whatever you do, it is sounding like you do need some sort of hybridization. So we cannot use a purely agile approach. It wouldn't make sense. A hybrid approach, option C, is the best answer. And here's the rationale. For projects with both high uncertainty, new product, and stable, well-defined components, legacy integration, a hybrid approach is often best. Option C leverages the strengths of agile for adaptability and rapid feedback in new development, while using a predictive approach for the stable integration, ensuring controlled and efficient execution for each distinct component. So when you are thinking like this, my friend, as you get into the exam and you have questions that test your agile, hybrid, and predictive understanding, you will choose the right option. Let's move on to our next image to look at here. The idea here is to understand if you are in a place of anarchy, don't leave things in the anarchy zone. Bring them down into the realm of at least complex by breaking them down into smaller iterative chunks. In other words, you need to go from here, bring things down to here. You got to think about iterative and incremental. Do things in iterations, deliver incrementally, and anarchy will be reduced. You do not want to stay in anarchy zone. When you are choosing a method to use, also remember that on this axis, you have the requirements, right? On this axis, you have the technicality. If you are close to agreement on the requirements and the scope, and close to certainty on the technicality and how to execute the project, then you're in the simple zone. And it's okay to be traditional in the simple zone. Now, as you move away from close to agreement to further from agreement in terms of the requirements and further from certainty in terms of the tech, you're going to get into more complicated zone. Complicated just means there are many moving parts, but it can still be governed by a largely predictive approach. Imagine assembling a watch. Yes, there are many parts, but if you follow one by one, step by step, you will get to the point where you assemble the watch. Now, on the flip side,
Complex is like going to a place you've never been before. There's a lot of uncertainty in it. There's not a predictable roadmap. And therefore, in this world of the PMP exam, both are important. Both understanding what it means when we say complex, what it means when we say complicated. Taking a look over here in the 13th task under the process domain, number 1 is assess the project needs. How complex is it? How big is it? Then you recommend the project execution strategy. You recommend a project approach, predictive, agile, or hybrid, and you could use iterative incremental practices throughout the life cycle if possible, having retrospectives, lessons learned, stakeholder engagement, but all of these done in iterations. Remember, you also have the PMP exam content outline, which echoes exactly the same points I showed you. It is important before your PMP exam that you really are solid with the outline, understanding every bullet you look at. If you do not understand what you're reading, you are not on the right path to your PMP exam success. You must understand every single one of these tasks. What are they saying? What are they saying from a people perspective? Even though this is in the process domain, I would still ask the question, when I'm determining the appropriate project methodology, the methods and the practices, who needs to be in the room? Who are the stakeholders involved? Who makes a judgment call about which ultimate approach to use? You should be able to rationalize these points and speak to them. And of course, the answer will be it depends on the organization, but you should have a picture of how that works in a project-oriented firm and in a more functional firm. What about a matrix firm? You got to understand all of these points, my friends, which is why over the past number of weeks, we have been going through the entire thing. We started off with the people domain, but I quickly got feedback from a lot of you that the people domain is not your main issue. For most students getting ready for the PMP, what I keep hearing from those who haven't and those who have taken the exam is that process is a wild, hairy beast, a big, hairy, audacious goal that needs to be tamed. And for that reason, we've been combing through task 1 all the way to where we are today. So we are on task 13. This goes to task 17. When we get to task 17, we will return to the people domain and clean up whatever we need to. Also remember that the business domain has received a lot of complaints. People feel they don't understand the business environment enough. And that's why way early in this process, I covered all 4 business domain tasks. I hope you're finding value from this, my friends. Smash the like button, put it on your social, share it with someone. This is great information for those who are struggling with the exam, because day by day we are covering task by task. And be rest assured, this is what is on your PMP exam. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. You take care, and bye for now. Welcome to PMP Exam Mindset, where we take a look at the PMP exam content outline. Today is day 28, and we're talking about task 14. The quote for today is, "Good governance is the art of looking at long-term implications of short-term decisions." When you talk about governance, you need to see it as a framework within which authority is exercised. When you have good governance, you're setting yourself up for success in the long term. You're also setting yourself up for success in the short term. Governance is often looked at as a bad word because it sounds rather restrictive, but in our book, PMP Exam Immersion, we stress that this is the framework and mechanism used to ensure that objectives are met while adhering to organizational standards and policies. Every framework should have policies and procedures. Even in the world of Agile, project governance exists. It ensures transparency and accountability. It also ensures stakeholder engagement throughout the project lifecycle. Agile governance is adaptive, and it focuses on delivering value and accommodating changes. Moving on to our true or false questions for today, the first question is, Agile projects do not require a governance structure. True or false? The answer to this, as I just stated, is false. All projects, including Agile ones, require some form of governance. While Agile governance may be more adaptive and less bureaucratic than traditional models, it still needs clear frameworks for decision-making, accountability, risk management, and stakeholder alignment to ensure project success. Question 2. Stakeholder engagement is not a part of Agile governance structure. The answer to this is again false. Stakeholder engagement is a crucial part of Agile project governance. Agile governance emphasizes continuous involvement of stakeholders to ensure that their needs are met. Feedback is incorporated and the project remains aligned with business objectives. Question 3. Agile governance structures are always less formal than traditional ones. True or false? Again, never choose blanket statements. This is false. While Agile often promotes lighter, more adaptive governance, it is not always less formal. The formality depends on the organizational context, regulatory requirements, and project complexity. Agile governance focuses on effectiveness and value delivery, which might sometimes require formal processes. Beware of questions like that on the exam that try to pigeonhole Agile or even predictive project management. Question 4. True or false? Transparency and accountability are key elements of Agile governance. The answer to this is indeed true. This is part of our mindset at higher and lower levels in Agile. For example, visible progress, open communication, and accountability. For example, clear roles, shared responsibility are fundamental to effective Agile governance. They ensure that all parties are aware of the project status and are responsible for their contributions. Final question, question 5. True or false? Agile governance does not accommodate changes in project direction. And the answer to this is, of course, false, because you know that in the world of Agile, we're all about adaptability. Agile governance is designed to accommodate and respond to changes in project direction. It provides mechanisms for adaptive planning, continuous feedback, and iterative decision-making, allowing the project to pivot as needed to deliver the most value. So now we're done with our true or false. Let's move on to the question for today. Here's a question. A large strategic project involves multiple business units, external vendors, and a complex regulatory environment. There are ambiguities regarding decision-making, authority, escalation path, and reporting requirements, leading to delays and conflicts. What is the project manager's most effective action to establish clarity and ensure effective oversight for this project? A. Work with the organizational business units and external vendors to develop a detailed communication management plan outlining all project reporting requirements and distribution lists for project updates to all project stakeholders. B. Define and implement a clear project governance framework, including roles, responsibilities, decision-making authorities, e.g. Steering Committee, CCB, Change Control Board, and escalation procedures, formally communicating it to all parties. C. Rely on the existing organizational hierarchy and functional reporting lines to manage all project decision-making and issue resolution, adapting as additional risks, problems, and issues arise on the project. And D. Conduct regular informal project-related meetings with stakeholders, with key stakeholders, to build consensus on critical project management and product decisions, avoiding the need for formal governance structures on the project. I'll give you some time to think about this. All right, now let's take a look at the logic and the rationale. The question explained at a high level. Decision making is ambiguous on this project. You're working with a number of business units, vendors, and a complex regulatory environment. The fact that the word regulatory exists shows you that this will have something to do with governance. Because of these ambiguities, as we can see here, it is leading to delays and conflicts. So you do need to do something about it. And the question is, the most effective action to establish clarity and ensure effective oversight. If we look at option A addresses communications and reporting, and that is not the same as governance, not the same as decision-making authority. So A, while it sounds good, is something you should do, but it doesn't address the problem of governance, because this is a governance issue. B, define and implement a clear project governance framework, is a sensible thing to do. Choosing B over A makes more sense because A just addresses communication, B addresses governance. Taking a look at C, it says rely on the existing hierarchy to manage all project decision making. Well, that doesn't make sense because if you're relying on the existing hierarchy, it may not cater to the actual project. The project needs for governance are different. So governance is a framework within which authority is exercised, and that could be at different levels, but at this point, we have a project governance issue. Go into option D, conduct regular informal meetings and avoiding the need for formal governance. That's not a prudent thing to do. Why would you avoid formal governance, especially if it is needed? Like we can tell that it's needed from this example. So the best answer, my friends, would be option B. This is a governance question. Let's take a look at the answer. For complex projects with multiple stakeholders and regulatory environments, establishing a clear project governance framework, option B, is paramount. This formally defines roles, responsibilities, decision-making authority, and escalation path, providing the necessary structure and clarity to ensure effective oversight and prevent delays and conflicts from arising from ambiguity. So when you take a look at a question such as this, a few things to learn for the exam. Number one, you got to manage your time. Each one of these could take upwards of 10 to 20 seconds to read. The question itself could very well take up to 30 seconds to read. When you take a look at this, you don't have a whole lot of time to waste. So you must practice reading quick and getting down to the heart of the matter. With that said, you should also be ready to get governance-related questions and identify when the question is about governance versus when it is about something else like communication or just getting along or conflict resolution. This is important for your exam because a lot of times there's shades very, very close to each other. All right, let's go back into our outline and understand what Task 14 is really talking about. So it simply states, establish project governance structure. And it says, determine the appropriate governance for a project. For example, replicate organizational governance, and also define escalation paths and thresholds. As a project manager, you should not feel uncomfortable with establishing governance because people need that framework for authority to be exercised in a more intentional manner than just relying on luck or relying on the organization's governance at that level. It may not suffice on the project. Also, escalation paths, thresholds, levels at which you need to exert that escalation. For example, a 0.95 SPI or CPI could be a threshold for escalation. And all other parameters regarding the project and escalation should be defined as part of that governance. Remember, governance is a framework within which authority is exercised. So at a particular level, you may need higher levels of authority beyond a team member or even beyond a project manager. And all of that needs to be defined in a solid governance plan. Now, if you go back to the question refers to this governance plan, if you will, as project governance framework. Now, however you spin it, whether you call it a governance plan or you call it a governance framework, it should include the things that we just took a look at. It should contain decision